Chapter 1309. At the center of the blood altar. Smoke and dust billowed. The black figure that had just appeared was motionless as he waved his sword. This is too exaggerated. Tuan almost sweated to death. If he was going to appear, then so be it. Was there a need to make such a big scene? However, he, who liked to show off, secretly decided that if there was a chance in the future, he would also make a similar entrance. Because this kind of entrance was too dazzling. Compared to the entrance in front of him, it was like a country bumpkin coming out of the city. It was not presentable at all. A gust of wind blew, causing the smoke and dust that had blocked their vision to disperse. The black figure that had been standing motionless for a long time. Finally, his true appearance was revealed. Everyone looked over. Whether it was the heavenly dragon clan's Guang, Thousand Bones Paralysis, or the Black Terror clan's Wild Boar and Black Bear demons, or the 5 from the Nine-Head clan. Even young Master Tuyu, who had maintained his elegant demeanor with a smile on his face, suppressed the curiosity and shock in his heart. He cast an inquiring gaze towards the center of the arena. He wanted to see the appearance of this super ranker who had just appeared in the arena. He wanted to see if he was the number 1 genius and ranker of Tong Tian Tower, the 3rd young master of the Yu clan, Titan Yu, who had fought against the Eastern Palace Master until now and was still stubbornly resisting to the end in an attempt to reverse the situation. After the smoke and dust had settled, the black figure that appeared in front of everyone was not Titan Yu. Instead, it was a dog that looked like it deserved to be beaten up, but its attitude was even more so. It made people want to beat it up. If they didn't beat it up, they would feel sorry for themselves, their conscience, and the public. It stood on its hind legs like a human, its 2 front paws making a victory sign. Its half-opened eyes were filled with arrogance. It only used a fifth of its eyes to look at its surroundings. Its attitude was like seeing a country bumpkin bragging about luxury goods. It was as disdainful as one could imagine. Although there were no words written on that despicable dog's face that made anyone want to throw a punch at it, it was filled with a wretched expression that said, "You're making a fuss out of nothing. You've never seen a handsome guy in your entire life, right?" Finally, that proud long tail stood up like a stick, just like the legendary Monkey Sun's golden cudgel. Fortunately, other than Yu Yang, there was no other man from another world. Otherwise, if they saw this guy, they would definitely shout, "Idiot, your moral integrity has fallen to the ground." Of course, whether or not this cheap dog had any moral integrity was another matter. It had to be known that this fool and Skysplit Tower's number 1 cheap bastard, Hai Dafu, were the same kind of trash. If it weren't for humans and dogs walking different paths, Yu Yang would have suspected that these 2 fellows were blood brothers. A dog? Dog? The graceful smile on young Master Tuyu's face froze. It was as stiff as the lava of a volcano that had cooled down. The double-headed dragon Guang and the others, who were secretly scared half to death, felt as if they had been struck by lightning. He was actually frightened by the appearance of a dog? It can't be, right? If this matter were to spread out, he would probably lose his face to the ends of the earth. F***ck. If he did that, would he still have the face to see others? Where did this dog come from? Didn't it know that as a dog, a damned mongrel, it should keep a low profile and guard the door? Eating **T was its duty. If it dared to look at Bones, even its owner would beat it to death. This kind of trash dog actually dared to come out in such a flashy manner? It actually dared to scare people like this? Ahahaha, good. This slap in the face is too satisfying. What a group of Heaven Realm rankers, what a group of Heaven Realm God rankers. They actually made a mongrel from Skysplit Tower scared to death. Ha, that's right. What Heaven Realm rankers, they are not even comparable to dogs. No, they are not even comparable to dog farts. The arrogant man's expression was stunned at first. Then, he reacted and laughed crazily. He could not stop laughing. First, he held his stomach and laughed, but this was not enough to vent. He bent down and used his fist to smash the ground of the blood altar. In the end, he rolled on the ground and kicked his legs. He laughed so hard that tears flowed down his face. However, he still could not get rid of the laughter in his heart. The most amazing thing was that the cheap dog, who was standing in the middle of the altar as if there was no one else around, actually cooperated and farted. It was very loud and very forceful. It turned around and rushed towards the god-level ranker 2-1 with its butt. It farted loudly and for a long time. With a pu sound, it was 100 times louder than the whistle of a train entering a station or passing through a tunnel in the Celestial Empire. Although they were quite far away, 2-1 and the others still felt as if they had been sprayed with a fart in their faces. This was simply too depressing. Not to mention being scared by a dog, they were even sprayed with dog farts in their faces. Had they ever felt so humiliated in their entire lives? Kill you! The bad-tempered buried tiger could no longer hold it in. He wanted to rush forward and tear this damned cheap dog into pieces. Just as he was about to move, a voice suddenly rang out. Perhaps it was less than a 10,000th of a second. Behind that cheap dog there was one more person. The moment he appeared, he kicked the cheap dog's body, sending this idiot, who had almost blinded everyone's Krypton gold dog eyes due to his flashy appearance, flying with a single kick, turning him into a shining star in the sky. When that detestable dog fell from the sky and landed heavily on the blood-colored altar, the ground trembled. His anger had yet to dissipate as he rushed forward, stretching his legs. Then, without thinking, he charged at the dog and gave it a round of kick. Who asked you to be arrogant? Who asked you to be cocky? Who asked you to steal the limelight? Who asked you to blind your dog eyes? Who asked you to appear in a flashy manner, accompanied by gongs and drums? As the #1 idol of Tong Tian Tower, who is knowledgeable, has high morals, sets a new trend, leads the trend, drives the atmosphere of society, and is popular all over the world, causing thousands of beautiful girls to scream and reach orgasm, I, the #1 idol of Tong Tian Tower, am not as flashy as you are, and not as exaggerated as you are. Are you trying to steal the limelight from your master? If all the beauties look at you, then who will be responsible for this loss that cannot be tolerated by the heavens? Are you itching for a beating because you haven't fought enough? As a watchdog, you don't think of ways to use your lowliness to set off the greatness of your master, and you even steal my limelight. You're simply courting death. Looking at this man who had followed him onto the stage, acting even more shamelessly than a hooligan on the street, everyone felt a wave of helplessness in their hearts. In everyone's mind, a proverb from the heavenly realm flashed. Like master, like servant. Same. Like a servant, like a master. There was this kind of lowly dog who purposely made a flashy entrance, intimidating everyone with a majestic aura and a face full of pride that deserved a beating. Of course, there was also a master who would make even his own pet jealous and was so shameless that his face was as thick as a city wall. Could it be that this guy who could sweat to death with just his mouth was the legendary #1 genius of Tong Tian Tower, the strongest Titan Yu? The God-ranked 2-1, as well as the God-ranked young Master 2-Yu and the others, all looked at the heavenly dragon clan's twin-headed dragon Guang, Thousand Bones Paralysis and the others who had seen Titan Yu before. The answer they received was yes. In other words, this young man who had started beating up his own pet as soon as he appeared was the Yu clan's third young Master Titan, Yu, whom everyone couldn't find even in the East. 2-1 was sweating profusely. This was the Titan Yu whom even the East couldn't deal with? Why did he look a little weak? Wasn't this brat's strength a lot weaker than what the legends said? I promise to be obedient. Hui Tai Lang hurriedly took out this plate from his storage space. He raised it high above his head and wagged his tail crazily, expressing that he would become a dog with ideals, morals, knowledge and discipline in the future. Humph, don't hit me so much. Yu Yang wouldn't stop when he saw him begging for mercy. He only stopped after beating him up for a full 10 minutes. Master V5. Seeing this, Hui Tai Lang hurriedly flattered him and took out another plate. Scram! Yu Yang didn't fall for this. So you're that titan you. With your strength, you don't even have the qualifications to pick up trash in the heaven realm. I really don't understand why Mr. Dongfang and the great god Tu Shi and the other rankers from the heaven realm would look at you differently. Standing behind Princess Tu Yu, who was a descendant of a god, the Taowu clan's leader Mantis couldn't help but mock and ridicule him. Long Mantis, maybe Master Titan Yu has his own unique inherent skill. How can he be judged by his strength alone? In the heaven realm and heaven realm, there are many knowledgeable sages. Their statuses are high, far surpassing those who don't learn martial arts. Even Father and the other almighty gods are highly respected by them. Maybe Master Titan Yu's inherent skill is developing in this direction. As the second generation of a god, young Master Tu Yu had regained his elegance. He smiled. His face, which was originally as stiff as a volcanic rock, was now as warm as a spring breeze. He was full of smiles and appeared very amiable. I'm just afraid that he's really a trash with nothing in his stomach. The green hat man Long Mantis snorted. Achoo! Yu Yang heard this and sneezed loudly. He was overjoyed. His face revealed a perverted expression that said, "Which beauty is thinking of me?" But before he could even fantasize, the second sneeze came. Immediately, his face changed into an annoyed expression that said, "Which bastard is cursing me behind my back?" Rubbing his nose, Yu Yang was extremely unhappy. Sneezing once and sneezing twice had completely different result. The former was auspicious, as the beauty was thinking of him, while the latter was ominous, as the villain was cursing him. Just as Yu Yang turned his head and was about to use a suspicious gaze to look at Master Tu Yu and the green hat man who were talking just now, the third sneeze resounded. F***CK. What did 3 sneezes mean? He caught a cold. Yu Yang hurriedly cupped his hands towards Master Tu Yu and Long Mantis to express his apology. I thought it was the two of you who were cursing me behind my back. I didn't think that it was just a cold. I'm very sorry. Actually, you guys can talk a little louder, it's not a hindrance. Don't be afraid to say it out loud. You guys have always been like that. What's there to hide? You guys have to be honest, and I've always been an honest kid. I'll speak the truth, and I'll never fabricate rumors, slander, or fabricate facts that aren't even worth a fart. Of course, maybe you like it, and that's your hobby. I won't be surprised. There are all kinds of people in this world, and it's very reasonable for there to be idiots like you. If it weren't for you retards, where would I get my sense of superiority from? As a descendant of a god, Master Tu Yu's smile became as stiff as a volcano. The arrogant man was dumbfounded. His jaw dropped to the back of his feet. The 5 people from the 9-head clan also smiled bitterly. As expected of the Yu clan's third young master, that even Dong Fang had a headache over. Not to mention anything else, just his words alone were unbearable. The green hat man from the Fei Ling clan, Long Mantis, was trembling with anger. Just as he lost control of his emotions and was about to fly up and pounce towards Yu Yang, the Sheath Wing clan's ranker Zhang, who was even more fiery than him, had already soared into the sky and slashed down with thousands of blades. On the battlefield, Yu Yang was so touched that he almost cried. He could finally fight. At first, I was afraid that the moment I appeared, I would scare the hell out of the enemy. I was so scared that I would piss my pants and run away without fighting. Now, I finally angered the enemy. Come on, I can't wait to torture you. Are you ready to moan? If you want to feel good, then scream. Don't be courteous with me. All of you, let's gang up on him. I don't mind. I've been wanting to fight one-on-one for a long time. If the impulsive guy above him was willing, Yu Yang wanted to give him the Most Popular Enemy Award. Or the Most Hated Award. When everyone was hesitating and watching coldly from the sidelines, he suddenly jumped out. What kind of spirit was this? This was the legendary spirit of sacrifice. and it was the kind of great sacrifice that he would make if he didn't enter hell. Yu Yang was so excited that he almost shouted, "Bro, you have to pull the aggro, don't let it go OT." Chapter 13:10. Tens of thousands of blade beams slashed down. However, at this moment, Tiger Burial's true body was not in the sky. Instead, it had strangely appeared behind Yu Yang. The scarlet eyes were like two red arrows, moving at high speed and drawing out a trajectory. Before it could even be reflected in the eyes of the crowd, the enormous teeth blade, which was shaped like a guillotine, had already silently crossed over to Yu Yang's neck. With a light pull, Yu Yang's head would be separated from his body and sent flying. Die! Endless killing intent rose in Tiger Burial's blood-red eyes. Hiss! Two dazzling saber lights flashed between heaven and earth before disappearing. Even space was directly sliced apart. It was impossible for the martial artists of the world to dodge this kind of strangulation with just their battle skills and speed. In fact, even some special races in the heaven realm had the ability to heal, regenerate, multiply, or some extraordinary talent that could completely ignore external physical damage. They might not be able to survive this kind of strangulation. This was because this kind of strangulation had the unique soul burial ability of the Elysian Wing Armor tribe. Not only did it harm the body, it could also directly harm the soul. One-hit kill. This was the high evaluation that the martial artists of the heaven realm had for Tiger Burial's attack method. The reason why Tiger Burial was so famous in the heaven realm was most likely because of his soul burial ability, which was extremely difficult to heal once it was killed. Although he had not fallen to the ground, Tiger Burial, Mantis, and the god's second-generation young master Tu, who was watching with a smile on his face, were all very sure of one thing. This Titan Yu, who had been hit, was dead for sure. No one could survive Tiger Burial's attack. Even if his body was strong enough. He did not have his head separated from his body. His soul had long been severely injured by the blade light that had invaded his body with the soul burial ability. The wings on Tiger Burial's back flapped lightly, and he circled around Yu Yang's back, deliberately stopping in front of him so that he could look at him one last time in panic before he died. At this moment, the lightning-fast saber radiance finally reached Yu Yang's head. Buried Tiger lowered his head and inserted the gigantic blade into the scabbard between his knees. He made a cool signature motionless posture to signal the end of the battle. Behind him, Yu Yang was at the position where the gigantic cross-shaped blade gleam slashed down, causing smoke and dust to fly everywhere. Thick smoke billowed. "How weak," Chongying sneered. "I thought I could go on stage to play, but I didn't expect that I'm just a big-mouthed toad, worse than an idiot." The elegant young master Tu also smiled. But he smiled modestly and politely. It was as if his subordinate's one-hit kill was a small matter that was not worth his attention at all. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something to everyone, but suddenly, his abdomen was in great pain. He felt as if he was about to vomit, and he couldn't hold it in anymore. Countless food scraps and acid sprayed out from his throat. There was no time to think, and no time to react. Young Master Tu, who was crazily vomiting, suddenly trembled slightly. His eyes rolled back, and he lost consciousness in an instant. His entire body was like a log that had been cut down from a hillside, and he fell to the ground with a loud bang. His handsome face smashed heavily into the filth he had just vomited. "What's going on?" Great Slaughtering God Tu Wan was extremely shocked. He didn't see anyone attack Tu. Oh! The bewitching Thousand Bones Paralysis also didn't understand. He turned his head to look at the twin-headed dragon Guang, but the latter was also confused. It was clearly a battle between Tiger Burial and Titan Yu, so why was it young Master Tu who fell to the ground instead? "I don't see anything." The arrogant man's face was also full of distress. He didn't see the specific situation clearly, but he guessed that Titan Yu had just attacked. So fast. Among the 5 people of the Nine-Head clan, the slightly mysterious nine-headed demon muttered softly. Tiger Burial and Long Mantis turned pale with fright. Was it Titan Yu's attack? How was this possible? Young Master Tu Yu was at the divine level, and his strength was far above the two of them. How could that Titan Yu have injured him? Moreover, under the gazes of so many people, no one could clearly see what had happened. If Titan Yu had attacked, then he wouldn't have had the time to do so. Even if it was him, he had been staying in the arena the entire time, and wouldn't have had the time to attack the vigilant young Master Tu Yu. What exactly was going on? Just as they were confused and at a complete loss of what to do, they suddenly saw at the same time that there was a deep fist imprint on each other's chests. Both of them were confused. How could the other party not have felt such a heavy blow? Moreover, who had made such a deep fist imprint? When had it been made? If a heavy punch hit, shouldn't it have sent the other party flying? How could there be no reaction at all, and even the person who had been hit didn't feel anything? The two of them simultaneously stretched out their hands and opened their mouths, wanting to point out the fist imprint on each other's chests. Just as they opened their mouth, similar to young Master Tu Yu, Long Mantis and Zhang, who both vomited crazily at the same time. Zhang, whose body swayed, his eyes rolled back before he fell down. Long Mantis, on the other hand, was like a piece of wood that had been chopped down by an axe. He fell to the ground with a loud bang, falling straight onto the blood-red altar. A light breeze blew. The smoke in the arena gradually dissipated, revealing the figures of Yu Yang and Hui Tai Lang beneath his feet. The great massacre god Tu Wan and the others finally saw the situation clearly. Previously they thought that Titan Yu, who had been killed in one blow by the twisting blade on his neck, had been decapitated, his blood splattered, and his corpse lying on the ground, did not even have a single wound on his body. He was so clean that it was as if he had just taken a bath. The thing on his neck, which made his living, did not seem to have any intention of moving. Seeing everyone's strange gazes, Yu Yang hurriedly explained, "I'm sorry, I just went back to take a bath and changed into a new set of clothes. Because I had more time, I even ate 2 snacks and drank a cup of God's Dew as my afternoon tea. I've made everyone wait for a long time. If everyone thinks that this pace is a little slow, I can actually speed it up. I can even hurry up a little and guarantee that I won't waste everyone's precious time." Choo-choo. Hui Tai Lang, who was beside him, cooperated and chewed on the meat bun in his mouth, showing that what his master said was true. The arrogant man's jaw dropped to his feet again. "Damn it. You, how is this a fight? You're just bullying people." That arrogant young Master Tu Yu, the second generation of the God Realm, could actually be beaten to a pulp. Are you sure that you're not even a god level? Even if you're pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, you can't fool people like this. Young Master Tu Yu is also a god level, okay? If you continue to bully people like this, aren't you afraid that people will cry and find a rope to hang themselves when they wake up? But then again, beating people like this is the right way. Stepping on people like this is the real way to bully people, this is the real way to feel good. The arrogant man suddenly understood why his idol, Mo Long, would become brothers with this Titan Yu. Birds of a feather flock together. Io. Young Master Tu Yu woke up with great difficulty. When he opened his eyes, he realized that he was lying on a puddle of vomit. He, who had a serious obsession with cleanliness, instantly exploded. He jumped up and roared at the sky. His eyes immediately turned red, and they were 100 times hotter than the magma that erupted from a volcano. The aura on his body increased by 1,000 times. From the God-General realm, which was originally hidden, it soared all the way to the God level. Howl! Howl, 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 howl! The handsome appearance of young Master Tu Yu, who was roaring at the sky, completely disappeared. The muscles on his body, arms, chest, abdomen, waist, buttocks and legs exploded and bulged. Countless body hairs and bone spurs grew crazily. Every joint was twisting, expanding, and deforming. curved horns, sharp teeth, sharp claws, hooves, and even an extremely strange venomous snake tail extended out from where his buttocks had torn apart his clothes. Just now, young Master Tu Yu was extremely handsome. Just looking at him made one's heart tremble. She wished that she could offer herself to sleep with him. Now that she looked at him, she immediately lost her appetite. How was he handsome? He was a monster that was uglier and more tragic than a gorilla, especially that slippery, cold, and poisonous snake tail. It made the hair of Myriad Bones' enchantress stand on end. Compared to it, the caterpillar in front of her was not even worth mentioning. After young Master Tu Yu returned to his original form, he was indeed powerful, even though he looked ugly. The violent divine flames on his body turned into a domain-like divine fire barrier. The entire blood-colored altar was within the range of young Master Tu Yu's will. If the twin-headed dragon Guang, the beautiful queen of 10,000 Bones Biscuit, the black bear Yao, and the wild boar Yao hadn't sensed that something was amiss and fled quickly enough, they would have been heavily injured by this destructive divine flame or even turned into charcoal. Even the most powerful great slaughterer god Tu Wan, who hadn't reached the god level, was forced to take 3 steps back by the divine flames. He only managed to stop when he was out of the blood-colored altar. Die. No one and no reason will forgive a lowly worm like you. How dare you launch a shameless sneak attack against the noble divine child, using your inherent skill to attack when the enemy was unprepared? The most unforgivable thing is that you dirted this divine child's noble and pure face. For this alone, you should die 10 million times. After recovering his true form, young Master Tu Yu's voice changed from its original elegance to an ear-piercing noise. This kind of voice was 100 times more unpleasant to the ears than the noise made by 100 mice fighting for food in a garbage can. As a guy from another world, Yu Yang had heard noises before. What kind of unpleasant sound had he not heard before? His mental endurance was extremely strong. But now that he heard it, he furrowed his brows and made a bitter face. His fingers dug his ears with all his might, trying to dig out the noise that was drilling into his eardrums. If he could, he would rather have a screaming mouse run into his ears than listen to this kind of noise. It was too painful, but there was nothing he could do about it. This was because the mouth that made this kind of noise was on someone else's face. Even if he wanted to remove it, he wouldn't be able to. I understand now. So Dongfang sent you guys here to die. Then, that Tian Tu Shenshur will have a reason to declare war against Tong Tian Tower and attack me. The rules of the game are pretty good. Since it is Dongfang's good intentions, I will accept it without hesitation. You won't have a part in my last words, but you can torture me a little longer and show us the hospitality of Tong Tian Tower. Yu Yang immediately understood. Why was that Tian Tu Shenshur still hiding behind and not attacking? He reckoned that there was also an agreement in the Heaven Realm. It was the same as the innate agreement in Tong Tian Tower. If a divine level ranker wanted to attack, he had to have a good reason. And this young Master Tu Yu, who only had the strength of a fake god, was naturally a sacrifice sent by his father and Dongfang. Yu Yang wanted to kill him. Tu Shenshur would have a good reason to attack. After all, he was taking revenge for his son. It was honorable and justifiable. Of course, even if he knew that it was Dongfang's plan, it would be a waste not to kill him since he was sending himself to die. If he were to be polite to this kind of trash, it would be intolerable. Moreover, even if he deliberately let this kind of retard go, with their intelligence, would they be able to understand what was a sacrifice and what was being used by others? In order not to waste his saliva and Dongfang's good intentions, Yu Yang decided. He would kill this god's son who was sending himself to die. Humanity would be destroyed. Die, look at this god's divine flame explosion wave. Ah, spray. Young Master Tu Yu had completely lost the ability to think. He had completely lost his mind and was completely immersed in his powerful strength. In the first place, this power did not come from his own cultivation. Instead, it was bestowed upon him by his divine-level father. He, who did not have a sufficiently high level and temperament, once he unleashed his full power, there would be nothing else in his eyes, only destruction and destruction. Rushing towards Yu Yang, he gathered the uncontrollable divine flame in his chest, forming a torrent of divine flame waterfall, and crazily spewed it out. Chapter 13:11. Yu Yang reached out a hand. He stretched his fingers. Divine flames erupted from the mouth of young Master Tu Yu's transformed monster. They danced in the sky, and the scorching energy that seemed to be able to burn the world forced the spectators to retreat. No one dared to face its power head-on. However, in front of Yu Yang, this berserk energy was as docile as a puppy. It miraculously gathered and compressed, forming a spherical golden ball of light. It was very small. Its core was not even the size of a fist. If it weren't for the light waves emitted by the highly compressed layers of divine flames on the outside, which gave people a soul-stirring feeling as if they were sealed demons, people would have thought that it was really created by the divine flames dancing in the sky just now. Pa! Yu Yang held the ball of light in his left hand. With his other hand, he punched out casually without any trace of anger. Before he punched out, Yu Yang was at least 30 meters away from young Master Tu Yu. But when his fist reached its end, it tore through the air and hit young Master Tu Yu's abdomen. The sound wasn't loud. Yu Yang didn't seem to have used any strength. But young Master Tu Yu, who was 3 meters tall after his transformation, immediately became much shorter after being punched. The expression on his face was extremely painful. Even though he looked like a hideous monster, it was still obvious that he was in pain. Young Master Tu Yu's body shook violently. His legs went soft, and his huge body fell uncontrollably to his knees in front of Yu Yang. In his eyes, besides the negative emotions of madness and bloodlust, there was also shock and astonishment. Of course, there was more pain and unwillingness. The monster-like young Master Tu Yu reached out his hands. He seemed to want to grab Yu Yang. He retaliated. However, after being punched, he found that his arm had no strength at all. He couldn't even move his fingers. The struggle in his heart was simply a futile and powerless fantasy. You've trampled on the power of the divine level. Yu Yang's left hand was still leisurely holding the compressed light ball, while his right hand was gently pressing on the top of young Master Tu Yu's head. No one knew what kind of innate power he had used, but with a gentle pull, all the energy stored in young Master Tu Yu's mouth, nose, facial features, and even the entire body of young Master Tu Yu surged out like spring water, continuously gathering in the palm of Yu Yang's right hand. First, an extremely tiny spot of light began to burn in the center of his palm. Immediately after, more energy was added. When more and more energy was gathered into a ball, the shape and brightness of the energy that Yu Yang had absorbed with his right hand gradually became similar to the energy ball that he had used to compress the divine flame explosion wave with his left hand. It looked like 2 small suns floating above his palms. Yu Yang pulled them up slowly, not stirring up a speck of dust. It was as if the slightest bit of force would shatter them. Explosion! The 2 balls of light successfully merged into a ball, and became bigger and brighter. When they reached their limit, they were not much less luminous than the real sun in the sky. On the contrary, young Master Tu Yu, whose energy had been extracted, quickly became thinner and thinner. He could not maintain his original monster-like form, and gradually degenerated. From a monster that was stronger than a gorilla, he withered and shrunk, turning into a gibbon, a skinny monkey, a dwarf, and even a skeleton. Young Master Tu Yu was actually not dead, but his life energy and the divine flame energy that his father had bestowed upon him had all been extracted, and he was now no different from a mummy. It was extremely terrifying. The current young Master Tu Yu gave off a feeling that a gust of wind would be able to blow his body apart. He turned into ashes. At this moment, Long Mantis and Burial Tiger, who had just woken up from their vomit, were stunned. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would not have believed that the mummy-like person who could be smashed to pieces by a casual punch from a baby was actually young Master Tu, who had just possessed the power of the divine level. This is impossible. Burial Tiger's lips trembled. He could not accept this cruel fact at all. It can't be true. There must be a mistake somewhere. The Long Mantis was also shrieking. They had come to provoke the U-Titan under the orders of the heaven-slaughtering deity. With such a powerful deity looking after them from behind, how could they have ended up like this? Young Master Tu was obviously the eldest son of Heaven Butcher God Tu-Shur, the future successor of the family's glory. How could he be drained dry by this damn Titan U? Why didn't the heaven-slaughtering god slaughtering the world? Even if Tu-Shur couldn't make it in time, why would the great slaughterer god, Tu-Wan, stand by and watch? It was a mistake. There must be a mistake somewhere. Otherwise, it wouldn't be like this. With his left hand, Yu Yang raised the highly compressed golden ball of light, which had a diameter of more than half a meter, slightly towards the sky, while his right hand reached out to the horrified Mantis and Burial Tiger in front of him. No, we will not resign ourselves to death. Buried Tiger angrily pounced forward. He was already clear about the difference in strength between him and the other party, but to let the other party kill him without struggling, or to extract his energy in front of everyone's eyes and turn him into a dried human was not something he could accept. If he couldn't escape, then he would at least bite off a piece of flesh from his opponent's body. Don't force me. The other companion, the Long Mantis, had the complete opposite thoughts. He only wanted to escape, but before he could move even a millimeter, he discovered that the U-Titan U, who was dozens of meters away, was already standing in front of him. His right hand was stretched out towards his chest, where his heart was. In this final moment of life and death, in this hopeless situation where there was no escape, he also chose to resist. He fought with his life on the line. His shriveled stomach instantly swelled up 10 times over. Under the control of his desire to self-destruct, his entire body rapidly transformed into a ball of violent energy. Let us go, we will never set foot in Skysplit Tower again. We don't dare, we won't come here again. Let us go, I beg you, don't force me, otherwise I will explode and this entire space will turn to dust. Don't force me! The Long Mantis opened his mouth and hurriedly begged for mercy. In order to live, he couldn't care less about things like face and dignity. He tried to make one last effort, hoping that Yu Yang would change his mind in time. Actually, 6,000 years ago, there were also idiots like you who begged for mercy from the prison emperor. 10,000 years ago, there were even more Heaven Realm rankers who begged for their lives at the feet of the Conqueror Queen. What I want to say is that you guys have never learned this kind of lesson from history. It has always been like this. Seeing that you are about to lose your life, only lowering your head and begging for mercy when your death is near. Isn't this a little too late? Even if I forgive you now, it doesn't mean that you Heaven Realm rankers truly have the intention to repent. Killing you doesn't mean that our Tong Tian Tower warriors don't have a forgiving heart. Since ancient times, we have done enough and forgiven enough. However, what we get in return is never gratitude, but an even more severe invasion. So, I have decided, from now on, Tong Tian Tower will no longer forgive us, and there will no longer be a chance for us to beg for our lives. Invaders, you only have one ending, and that is death. Yu Yang's right hand lightly pierced. It pierced through the Long Mantis' extremely bulging abdomen. Countless poisonous green energy spurted out, but under Yu Yang's will, it turned into a gentle and thin thread, automatically twisting into a ball. Unable to attack and unable to escape, the insect clan ranker, Buried Tiger, suddenly collapsed. His spirit could no longer hold on, as if a string in his brain had suddenly snapped. He pounced forward crazily, brandishing his gigantic toothed blade. His moves were messy, as he slashed towards Yu Yang without any pattern. Slightly turning his body, Yu Yang's right index finger lightly tapped on his forehead. Similarly, a tide-like sharp energy gushed out from the hole in his forehead, and under Yu Yang's will, it turned into a ball of countless sharp thorns. 3 dried-up corpses that could be blown away by a sneeze were placed in front of everyone just like that. Even the great slaughtering god Tu Wan, who was a god-level ranker, possessed great power, and had an extremely firm will, at this moment, broke out in cold sweat. With his divine power, it was not difficult to kill Sir Tu Yu, Long Mantis, and Buried Tiger. Even if Sir Tu Yu had the great divine power bestowed upon him by his father, it was impossible for him to last 10 moves against a god-level ranker that had truly cultivated. But, to do this to Tu Wan, in the time it took to raise his hand, to drain the energy of the 3 and turn them into dried-up corpses, and even leave them with their last breath, struggling at death's door. That was an impossible task. Perhaps only Big Brother, who had already reached the true god level, Tushur, who was known as the heavenly slaughtering god in the heaven realm, who was unimaginably powerful, could have such an unbelievable and miraculous power. Tu Wan had actually wanted to save them just now. No matter what, Tu Yu was his nephew, and had usually given him many treasures and women as a form of filial piety. But suddenly, a thought that surpassed sound flashed past his ears. This caused him to immediately change his mind. Of course, the strange abilities and attack talent of Titan Yu in front of him also caused him to hesitate. For a fellow like Titan Yu that even the Eastern Palace Master had a headache over, it was better to let the stronger god-level ranker teach him a lesson. He shouldn't do unnecessary and useless things. Under this principle of self-preservation, the great slaughtering god Tu Wan, who possessed the power of a god-level ranker, did not make a sound, did not move an inch, and stood in place like a statue. Clap, clap, clap. At an unknown place, someone lightly applauded, as if praising Yu Yang's heroic feat of resisting the enemy and getting rid of an evil for the people. Good! What a good Titan Yu! I have long heard of your great name. Seeing you today, you are indeed extraordinary. In the heaven realm, your name is mentioned by this deity's ears at least 3 times a day. This deity is very curious. What kind of young hero can make people revere you so much? In the end, this deity really couldn't resist my curiosity, and felt that I had to make a trip to this fallen Tong Tian Tower. Otherwise, I would definitely miss out on a young genius like you that is rarely seen in 10,000 years. This person's voice was gentle and calm, completely without a trace of anger. Like a mountain rock beside a stream. Heavy and heavy. Although it was not as sharp as some noisy guests who stole the host's place, it had a weight that no one could ignore. When Yu Yang heard this, he frowned slightly. Just as he was about to reply, who knew that someone else would speak first? Too sure, have you become stupid from eating too much beans? This bullshit genius Titan Yu that only appears once in 10,000 years just killed your son. Why are you still being polite to him? If I were you, I would immediately fry his skin, break his bones and turn his bones into ashes. That would be a waste of your dignity as a god. So the number 1 guard of the central shrine, giant god Changmen, is here too. I too sure greet you. The calm and steady man who spoke earlier did not sound anxious at all. Instead, he was smiling. These are 2 different matters. Although the Yu clan's 3rd young master killed my son Tu Yu and ended the Yu clan's bloodline, this can only be blamed on Tu Yu's lack of skills. How can you put all the blame on Titan Yu? No matter how muddle-headed I am, I will not blame others wrongly. Right here, Tushur would like to declare that I and the entire Sky-Swallowing clan will definitely not take revenge on the Yu clan's 3rd young master. I came here mainly for justice. In the past, the ancestors of the Sky-Swallowing clan had many disputes and misunderstandings with the warriors of Tong Tian Tower. Tushur is not talented, so I would like to invite Titan Yu's master, the conquering queen, to resolve the grievances of the past. Chapter 13:12. You're not worthy. Yu Yang responded faintly. Although his tone was very light, there was a sense of contempt in his bones. The steady Tusher fell silent upon hearing this. Hey, it's not that I'm not worthy, boy, you can't invite her out. The voice that was called Giant God Nagato by Tian Tusher, who rushed to speak just now, shouted proudly, Conquest Queen hasn't broken out of the seal yet, right? The seal of nirvana deification is not so easy to break. You're just using the title of Conquest Queen's disciple to scare people. When normal Heaven Realm warriors hear this, they might be intimidated by you. When they hear the Conquest Queen's name, they would be so scared that their legs would go soft. However, do you think that you can use this kind of senseless and laughable trick to scare us, the God-level rankers? What genius that only appears once in 10,000 years. Haha, it's ridiculous. Do you think Dongfang, Tusher, an immovable sovereign are really afraid of you? No, all the divine-level experts are just afraid of the Conquest Queen who may have died long ago. Even if she is not dead, she has not broken out of the seal. With just you? Why don't you look in the mirror? Are you worthy of a few divine-level experts holding back their anger? With just one finger, I can crush an ant like you into meat paste. Human, you're so fragile. Is that so? Then why don't you come up and try? Yu Yang asked. His expression was calm. There was no anger. An extremely faint mocking smile appeared at the corner of his lips, but it had a different meaning. Of course I'll kill you. What I like to do the most is to kill the genius that only appears once in 1,000 years. However, I can wait patiently. I want to listen to what Katsukami, who killed his son and let others ride on his head without daring to say a word, has to say next. The giant god Nagato blasted Katsuki again, pulling the hatred onto others. It's just the death of my son. It's just an insignificant personal grudge. The main reason I'm here today is to resolve the misunderstanding between the elders of my clan and the Conqueror Queen. The Heaven Slaughterer God, Tusher, generously expressed that it didn't matter even if he lost his son. What if Conquest Queen doesn't appear? The arrogant man saw clearly the true colors of this group of divine-level experts. They were just bullying the weak and fearing the strong. They said so much. However, he was only stalling for time to test the waters. As long as they were 100% sure that the Conquest Queen was still within the Nirvana God-sealing seal, the God-level experts in front of them, who were acting for the common good and had no personal grudges, would swarm toward Titan Yu and beat him to death. They were like gossipy women, chattering away for a long time. It was just to test if the Conquest Queen had broken through the seal. With the Conquest Queen's temper, she would definitely not let her beloved disciple, Titan Yu, fight alone. If the Conquest Queen did not appear in the end, then these divine-level experts from the upper realm could be sure that the Conquest Queen had not broken free from the seal. If that was the case, they would not hesitate to attack. All that talk about public grievances and personal grievances was nonsense. Only power. Absolute power was supreme, and that was the key to deciding everything. Conquest Queen? She will appear, maybe not now, maybe one day in the future, but we have enough patience to wait for her return. However, before that, I would like to invite the Conqueror Queen's only disciple, Tong Tian Tower's third young master, Yu Titan, to wait with us. As long as Titan Yu agrees, I can guarantee his safety and give him the best treatment. At the same time, I also believe that no matter how many misunderstandings there are between Tong Tian Tower and the Central Shrine, as long as we communicate sincerely and trust each other, both sides will be able to return to the starting point of peaceful coexistence and start negotiations. Invading Tong Tian Tower is not what we want. We have come here with great goodwill. We want to share the best things in the Central Shrine with Tong Tian Tower. The voice of Ji Budao, who had fought with the Night Empress previously, echoed in the sky as he joined the discussion. F***ck, these disgusting words make me want to vomit for 3 days and 3 nights. The arrogant man was completely speechless. Only the people from the central shrine would talk about invading in such a dignified and righteous manner. This is also a method of attack. The 9-headed goblin of the 9-headed clan laughed out loud. All right, I probably won't be able to learn this kind of attack in this lifetime. The arrogant man spat on the ground in disdain. If he had the power of a divine level, he would definitely help Yu Yang indignantly. Unfortunately, he didn't. If he had enough power, as the captain of the Chongmen giant god, who was on guard at the central divine palace, the heaven-slaughtering god slaughtering the world, the invincible sovereign, and other god-level experts, they would not ignore his contemptuous attitude and venomous words. Unfortunately, he did not have such power. As a divine-level ranker, no matter if it was the ill-tempered captain or the domineering and arrogant Zhibu Dao, they all completely ignored the arrogant man's existence. In their eyes, this kid was no different from a slightly larger ant. He could be crushed with a finger. There was no need to be angry. If they looked at this brat for too long, they would even lower their status. They were only looking at the person standing in the middle of the blood altar. He might be the last ranker of Tong Tian Tower, the third young master of the Yu clan in the soaring dragon continent, Titan Yu. Yu Yang didn't get angry, nor did he retaliate. Sometimes, if it was useless to retaliate, then there was no need to waste his saliva. Now, this was the situation. The enemies had already heard the news and rushed over from all directions. They weren't in a hurry to attack, not because they weren't in a hurry to destroy Tong Tian Tower. On the contrary, they were like hungry wolves with bloodthirsty fangs and claws. They had long been hungry and thirsty. However, they were divine-level rankers with rich battle experience and an unshakable iron will. No matter how hungry they would endure and wait for the best time to attack. Then, they would kill their prey in one strike and tear them into pieces. The only thing they were afraid of was the Conquest Queen who had sworn to conquer Heaven Realm. If she wasn't here, then they would immediately open their bloody mouths, reveal their sharp fangs and fiercely pounce. All of this was within Yu Yang's expectations. He had already thought of this before he rushed out of the heaven stairway. However, when he rushed out of the blood-red altar, he discovered that young Master Tu Yu, the second generation of the God Realm, and the others were present, but his biggest helper, the demonic dragon, was missing. He realized that things had changed, and things were not going according to his plan. Dongfang was definitely not that simple. Not to mention Dongfang, even the immovable Zhizun, who was still in hiding, was not an ordinary person, let alone the mysterious Tianyu. On the surface, Yu Yang's attitude was calm, and even his words and actions were a little disdainful. However, deep down, he didn't underestimate or be careless at all. Dongfang, the immovable Zhizun, and the deity temple's supreme Tianyu must be playing tricks in the dark. Divine-level rankers aren't stupid. If anyone thinks that these old foxes who have lived for tens of thousands of years and fought with each other for tens of thousands of years are stupid, then he is the real stupid one. Yu Yang kept thinking. The battlefield, the battle situation, the battle, and so on looked very normal. There was nothing unexpected. Among the people who defeated young Master Tu Yu and Zhang Hu, he probed again and again. He didn't find anything strange. However, the more it was like this, the more abnormal the situation and the direction of the battle situation was. Dongfang and the others had no reason to do nothing. However, what exactly happened in the surroundings that seemed normal on the surface? Before he found out the reason, this battle was still within Dongfang's calculations, and it was still within the control of his chess talent. What should he do with the situation in front of him? How could he break out of this situation? Wait a minute. This is also a method of attack. He recalled that the 9-headed demon's words seemed to be referring to something else. Could it be? Yu Yang's heart trembled slightly. He raised his eyes to look in the direction of the sound of Tian Tu Shinshur, who didn't show up, but had a steady quality. He then turned around to look at Grey Wolf behind him, and then looked at the direction of the voices of the giant god Captain and Supreme Unfalling, who were either arrogant or shameless to join the discussion. Suddenly, a realization flashed through his mind, illuminating his thoughts that had fallen into chaos. Yu Yang moved at an unimaginable speed. He turned around and kicked. He attacked Grey Wolf, who was behind him. Grey Wolf, who was shaking his head with a despicable look on his face, was smashed by his kick, and his afterimage disappeared. In the void, a golden palm imprinted on Yu Yang's forehead. It wasn't fast, but no matter how Yu Yang tried to dodge, he couldn't avoid the golden palm's attack. Damn it, get lost! Yu Yang didn't struggle in vain. He stretched his head forward and forcefully took a heavy palm strike on his forehead. Both of his hands grabbed forward and grabbed the arm behind the golden palm. In less than 1,000th of a second before the other party could retreat, Yu Yang fiercely smashed his head into the other party's arm bones. Both of his hands twisted at the same time, and he twisted his waist. He threw him over his shoulder. He struggled to pull out a golden shadow from the void and slammed it on the bloody altar in front of him. The entire bloody altar was trembling, and the altar, which was difficult to be damaged by divine weapons, shrank and spread like a spider web. The solid golden shadow bounced up and turned into golden smoke under Yu Yang's heavy punches and consecutive flying kick. It was invisible and ethereal, and it easily retreated out of Yu Yang's attack range. "How did you see that?" the golden shadow asked a little strangely. "In major battles, Grey Wolf never stands behind me. It is a world-destroying demonic wolf, and it has its own pride. Moreover, it has fought with the captain, who is known as the giant god Nagato. When the captain appeared, it didn't make a sound. This is very abnormal, and it is not its character at all. Finally, although Grey Wolf is not my contracted beast, it is closer to me than contracted beast. Although you can also pretend to have no murderous aura, you can't imitate its unique and intimate aura." Yu Yang gently wiped away the erosion of divine power on his forehead, and stared coldly at the calm and steady heaven slaughtering God slaughtering world in the distant sky. "Although I have never seen heaven slaughtering God slaughtering world, such a low-profile god in the heaven realm must be an assassin. It would definitely not be as mature, steady, and wise as you. You want to use the cold-blooded cruelty of your son's death to cover up. Who doesn't want to do this? It just makes me suspicious. You are actually the East who arranged the battlefield and thought that you could control everything. Your endless words, coupled with the Captain and Supreme Indestructible's provocation, are just a cover for slaughtering world who is hiding behind me like an assassin. You all already knew that Her Majesty Queen Vivian Li would not be able to come to help. If she could come, you all would have been so scared that you would have peed your pants and run away. You all made use of other people's suspicions to make this plan. It is indeed very interesting. Unfortunately, if it wasn't for the Goblin Emperor who saw through it and gave you pointers, my plan might have succeeded." That steady and heavy slaughtering world's voice suddenly changed, returning to the calm and unperturbed tone of the East. "If you want to incriminate someone, there is no fear of not having a pretext. Did Palace Master Dong Fong misunderstand?" The nine-headed goblin laughed, but his eyes were not smiling at all. Under the shocked gazes of the twin-headed dragon Gu Ong and the others, he admitted his true identity. He was the real Goblin Emperor. The bewitching Thousand Bones Crisper and the other Heaven Realm rankers only knew fear now. It was fine if they didn't know before, but now that they thought about it, they actually stayed with such a dangerous godly level ranker for such a long time. They even mocked and ridiculed each other for a long time, and even almost attacked each other. Really? Luckily they didn't fight, otherwise even if all of them joined forces, they wouldn't even be able to kill him with one finger. It must be a misunderstanding. The Goblin Emperor has always been neutral, Why would he side with the Yu clan's third young master who is not related to him? Supreme Indestructible spoke up to help. Perhaps he was also dissatisfied with the demonic beast emperor's careless advice, but he was very clear that he couldn't allow another divine-level expert like the demonic beast emperor to become his enemy before successfully killing Titan Yu. Otherwise, the battle situation would worsen, and it would become extremely dangerous. It's good that it's a misunderstanding. I didn't say anything, and I won't interfere in your battle. I won't help either side. The Goblin Emperor's last sentence seemed to be directed at Yu Yang. Thank you. Yu Yang cupped his hands towards the Goblin Emperor sincerely. He felt that the Goblin Emperor would not help either side. He would not hit him when he was down. This was already a huge surprise that had far exceeded his expectations. I could have meddled in other people's business. I've always liked bustling places, but it's a pity that I owed someone a huge favor back then. So, I can only be a coward. The Goblin Emperor laughed at himself. Everyone had their own difficulties. Yu Yang understood. Moreover, this was his own battle, and he did not need the Goblin Emperor's help. As long as he remained neutral, it was enough goodwill. Yu Yang nodded towards the Goblin Emperor to express his gratitude. He was already mentally prepared for Dong Feng, Tu Shi, Captain, Supreme Indestructible and other godly level rankers' attack. Now, the only thing he did not understand was what kind of tricks the mysterious deity Palace Sovereign Tian Yu had done behind the scenes. It was impossible that he did not do anything. Since the Conquest Queen is unable to come, then I'll have to trouble Yu Clan third young master to stay in the central divine palace for a few days. We are very sincere in inviting you. Before the Conquest Queen arrives, we will definitely entertain you with great hospitality. Supreme Indestructible slowly appeared in the sky. His 20-meter-tall body was like a small mountain, and he gave off an indescribable sense of oppression. You want to fight alone? Or gang up on me? The giant god captain of the main gate who had fought with Grey Wolf earlier also appeared on the other side of the sky, calling out to him from afar. Chapter 13:13. One-on-one or a group fight. The first captain on duty at the central shrine gave him a choice, and Tu Wan made his move. He had been waiting for a long time. From the moment when the heavenly weapon blood scythe in his hand was snatched away by Ah-Man in an incomparably humiliating manner, and even earlier when the sickly beauty used the crystal wall and the crystal shield to easily block his attack, rudely insulting the pride of the second strongest of the sky-swallowing clan, this great massacre god who could run amok in the heaven realm couldn't hold back the anger in his heart. He vowed to return this humiliation to one of the Tong Tian Tower's warriors, Thumb, 1,000 times over. Titan Yu? He was also the target that he had been longing to kill for a long time. If it wasn't for the extremely secretive divine thought that came from the east to dissuade him, he would not have waited until now to attack. Go to hell. The time was right. With several divine-level experts surrounding him, this guy might die in the next second. Now was the best time to take revenge. What if he didn't make his move now? When would he wait? Tu Wan raised his hands high, and a super-heavy quasi-divine weapon Bloodthirsty appeared between his fingers. It looked like a blood-flower axe made of demonic iron, but the mottled runes on it had a kind of bloodthirsty and violent power. Whether it was the broad blade, the horn handle, or the two sides of the twisted spiral, they all looked ferocious. The giant divine weapon was raised high, and chopped down towards Yu Yang's head with an unstoppable force. This chop carried Tu Wan's god power that had been suppressed to the limit. It seemed to have the power to split the heavens and the earth. Not to mention a body of flesh and blood, even a towering mountain peak could only be split in half under this heavy chop. Too slow. Yu Yang spat out these two words coldly. The afterimage was still in the same place, but the real body had long disappeared. At the moment when Tu Wan almost could not stop his attack, Yu Yang appeared behind him, and slowly pressed his palm forward. As long as he hit the target, He believed that even someone as strong as Tu Wan would not be able to walk away unscathed. As if he had expected that Yu Yang would launch a surprise attack on Tu Wan, the first captain on duty in the central shrine was already waiting there. The golden fist pierced through the energy field of space and time at an inconceivable speed. Compared to Tu Wan's blood axe heavy chop, one was like a bolt of lightning while the other was like a turtle crawling, completely incomparable. Halfway through, the golden fists flashed and scattered, turning into millions of specks of golden starlight. Behind each speck of starlight was a solid fist. As long as Yu Yang was hit by any of the fists, the injuries he would receive would not be any less than the heavy chop of Tu Wan's giant axe. The raindrop-like fists formed a golden curtain of light that covered the sky. "You're too stupid." Yu Yang's afterimage was destroyed with a single strike. But the voice he left behind before he disappeared was clearly transmitted into the eardrums of everyone present. This voice, which carried an unshakable supreme will, was not something that could be dispelled by punching energy. Even if space was shattered, it would still be able to penetrate one's heart. Yu Yang showed up for the second time, behind Supreme Indestructible, who was 20 meters tall and had a physique that was as huge as a small mountain, was hard to look up to. Supreme Indestructible, however, was as agile as a swimming fish. In less than a 10,000th of a second after Yu Yang appeared, he had already turned his huge body around and punched heavily at Yu Yang. Although huge, Supreme Indestructible's heavy punches were even faster than the raindrop-like, lightning-fast captain's quick fists. Yu Yang had never expected Supreme Indestructible's body to be able to move at such an astonishing speed. He leapt up by a hair's breadth, narrowly escaping Supreme Indestructible's attack range. If he had been even half a second slower, Supreme Indestructible would have smashed him into a meat patty. Too slow. Supreme Indestructible returned the same words to Yu Yang. He had yet to retract his fist. His body was as agile as a snake, and he leaned back. His right leg was thousands of times faster than a shooting star. The afterimages of space shattering extended behind him, but they could not keep up with his spinning kick. The violent and swift kick forced Yu Yang into a panic. Although the foot looked huge, Yu Yang had a feeling that, if he was hit by the kick, he would probably be hit in the chin, and then his head would explode. No one wanted to become a headless corpse. Yu Yang hurriedly did a backflip to dodge the precise flying kick. How stupid! Supreme Indestructible seemed to have predicted that Yu Yang would dodge like this. In other words, under his attack, Yu Yang had no other choice. The heavy punch was not retracted, and the flying kick was not retracted. The two attacks were still there, but Supreme Indestructible strangely bent his waist forward, and unexpectedly leaned forward again. His left hand, which had been accumulating power, had already condensed a ball of divine power that shone brighter than the sun. He gently pushed the ball of divine power that looked like the sun. Coincidentally, it landed on Yu Yang's tumbling body. Although the divine power light ball was so huge that it completely covered Yu Yang's entire body, Yu Yang, who was hit by the attack, could feel that the divine power light ball's true invasion point and its greatest power was attacking his face. Yu Yang had no way of dodging it, but as a man from another world, he could still fight back. When it came to fighting back, he would not lose to anyone. In a hopeless situation where he could not dodge, Yu Yang hit the ball of divine power head-on, as if he did not care about his life anymore. At the same time, 10 meters behind Yu Yang, the ethereal golden shadow, which was also known as the heaven-slaughtering god slaughtering world in the upper realm, silently flashed. Thousands of blood-red divine power blades appeared and shattered the entire space. Behind Yu Yang, the sky collapsed into a black hole that sucked in everything. If the ball of divine power exploded, the impact would blow him into the black hole. If that happened, even if he did not die, he would be exiled indefinitely, and no one knew how long it would take for him to find the accurate space-time coordinates and return to the Tong Tian Tower. Yu Yang's strange action of hitting the ball of divine power head-on had detonated the ball of divine power ahead of time. An earth-shattering explosion occurred. Yu Yang, who was supposed to be smashed into the black hole, was blasted into the air, and narrowly missed the edge of the black hole. Ha! Tu Wan, who was holding the giant god bloodthirsty battle axe, leaped up and slashed at Yu Yang, who was flying backwards. On the other side, the captain, who was faster than him, had been waiting for a long time. I'll return it to you. Yu Yang's body turned and changed its trajectory. Instead of facing Tu Wan, he sped up and shot towards the ethereal golden shadow. He also waved his hands, and a cross/slash condensed from divine power. Although it did not have thousands of changes, it cut towards the number 1 expert of the sky-swallowing clan, Heaven slaughtering God slaughtering world. Heaven slaughtering God slaughtering world seemed to chuckle, and thousands of blood-red divine blades suddenly appeared again. Blood-red divine blades. A cross/head-on. Both sides had the same attitude, and neither retreated nor dodged. Their bodies collided in the shattered sky. The ethereal Heaven slaughtering God slaughtering world let out a sharp scream, like a wounded beast roaring angrily. Then, it disappeared, and no one was able to catch a trace of it anymore. Only a drop of golden divine blood slowly floated down from the shattered sky, and dripped on the ground of the blood-red altar. It dripped in front of Yu Yang. At this moment, on Yu Yang's body, there were tens of blood-red wounds, as if he had been cut by invisible blades. His skin and flesh were torn apart, and fresh blood seeped through his clothes like a fountain. He was injured. Under the combined attack of a few powerful god-level experts, he was finally injured. The twin-headed dragon Guang and the others who were watching the battle could not help but feel a sense of relief. If Titan Yu was not injured in this situation, and was not injured at all, then everyone should just commit suicide. What was the point of hoping for a share of the god's ruins? That was simply an impossible dream. Fortunately, although Titan Yu was strong, he could still be injured. Under the combined attack of a few god-level experts. He had not lost yet, but he was clearly at a disadvantage. There was still hope in the god's ruins. The number 1 strategist, Dongfang, who had been plotting for 1,000 years and controlled the entire situation, should definitely win. Even a genius like Titan Yu would not be able to defeat Dongfang. This was because this fellow's schemes were too deep. Wrong. Dongfang, who had been watching the battle from the start, suddenly denied. Yu Clan's third young master should not be injured. Such a strong combined attack would not be enough to injure Titan Yu more than 10 times. If you want to deduce this, falling into a hopeless situation is intentional. Fighting the enemy head-on is also intentional. I understand. Titan Yu is using his blood to guide the way. Clever Yu Clan's third young master, are you giving your divine beast Hui Tai Lang a direction? Or are you giving an obvious hint to that majesty who has hidden himself so deeply? Hui Tai Lang is not here? Yu Yang's gaze was a little strange. He looked around but did not see any trace of it. Even if it was chased out of the heaven stairway by Dongfang's chess skill and thrown into any space in Tong Tian Tower, it should have rushed over. Moreover, with the guidance of his blood, it should have rushed to his side immediately. Why was there no reaction? Could it be that it was controlled by Dongfang in some way? But what Dongfang said did not sound like him. Was it Tian Yu's doing? Yu Yang's gaze slowly turned to the broken goddess statue on the blood altar. He frowned. The power fluctuation he had sensed from the statue of the goddess had all disappeared. This should not have happened. Even if Dongfang and Tianyu attacked together, it should not have been able to destroy the statue of the goddess that had existed for thousands of years. How could the ancient power of the blood-colored altar be resisted and disturbed by the divine power of a single person? Very good. I did not expect you to discover this suspicious point so quickly. As expected of Tong Tian Tower's number 1 genius, Titan Yu. I thought that this kind of Milky Way reflection, time and space reversal would be able to hide from you. I did not expect you to discover it so quickly. Interesting battle intuition. Titan you, then, what method will you use to reverse the situation next? In this Heaven Realm chessboard battlefield, far away from Tong Tian Tower, far away from Heaven's Stairway, far away from the blood altar that is extremely beneficial to you, in this unfavorable battlefield that is completely condensed by my divine power, constructed by my wisdom, and formed by the majesty of my code, how will you use your specialty to reverse the situation? No external help, no beasts, no grimoire, no divine weapons, nothing at all. Only you, alone, fighting alone. Before Dong Fang could finish his sentence, the whole world suddenly changed. It was no longer the blood altar in Heaven's Stairway level White River Valley. Here. Suddenly, it changed to Heaven Realm. A place that Yu Yang did not recognize at all. It was a little like the world in the grimoire space. It also had the majesty of the code, was also constructed by divine power, and was also controlled by Dong Fang's will. However, Yu Yang was 100% sure that this was not the grimoire world, but a certain area in Heaven Realm that Dong Fang had used his divine power to construct for 10,000 years. If this was the world in Dong Fang's grimoire, then it was a good thing for Yu Yang, because he had the trials grimoire that no grimoire could suppress, even the holy grimoire that had accompanied him as he grew up. Even if it was not the holy grimoire, it could not be suppressed. But, in this special area that Dong Fang had used his divine power to construct for thousands of years, the whole space, the whole heaven and earth had been completely permeated by his will. There was no place that did not reflect Dong Fang's wisdom and the power of the code inside. It was equivalent to a sealed special space. Not only Yu Yang, everyone, no one could use their grimoires or beasts, nor could they reveal any information to the outside. So this is the real chessboard world created by the chess inherent skill? It's really amazing. Now I know why you, who look like an ordinary person on the surface, are the #1 person under Ji Zun Tianyu in the central shrine, and why you have the qualification to seize Tong Tian Tower. It turns out that this is the true embodiment of your strength. Yu Yang had been worried that Dong Fang would make a move. When Dong Fang showed his trump card, he felt that this trump card was far beyond his estimation, completely beyond his expectations. Yu Yang waited for Dong Fang to make a move. Waited for his trump card. However, this trump card was not something he was willing to accept. Chapter 13-14. In the chessboard world constructed by Dong Fang's divine power and will, no one could use grimoires or beasts. 4 warriors with summoning grimoires. This was undoubtedly the greatest suppression. The battle has begun. Dong Fang's aura gradually disappeared between heaven and earth, leaving only his last voice echoing in Yu Yang's ears. Now, it is the real battle, falling into the enemy's chessboard world, unable to send information outside. Fighting alone. Moreover, grimoires and beasts were all forbidden. Under such terrible conditions, the pressure Yu Yang had to face was as heavy as a mountain. How could he turn this battle around? Damn it! The arrogant man clenched his fist. He realized that he and all the spectators from the Nine-Headed Clan and Heavenly Dragon Clan had left the chessboard world, as if they were separated by an invisible barrier. Even if they could see and hear, they could not spare any energy to help any side in the chessboard world. It seemed like they were only 100 meters apart, but it was actually the distance between 2 worlds. As long as the owner of the chessboard world, Dong Fang, was not dead, and his will still existed, then no one could cross the boundary. Forget it, being a spectator is not bad. The 2-headed dragon Gu Ong sighed softly. At this moment, he no longer had the ambition to enter Tong Tian Tower to share the treasures in God's ruins, because he'd already clearly realized that his strength was only a pitiful ant when compared to a true God-level expert. Such a handsome guy, it would be a pity if he died. Thousand Bones Crispy looked at Yu Yang's face and licked her fiery red lips, secretly swallowing a mouthful of saliva. Beside Yu Yang, Tu Yu, Long Mantis and Burial Tiger, who had been beaten to a pulp and had only one breath left, suddenly trembled slightly. The illegitimate son Tu Shi, who had already been expelled from the battlefield by Dongfang's will and was also classified as a spectator, was most concerned about the three's life and death. Seeing that something was wrong, he immediately exclaimed, Is this divine power or some special talent at work? Why do I see that they are getting better? The Fey Emperor, who was also a spectator, was also paying attention. It seems that this is the uniqueness of the chessboard world. As soon as he finished speaking, Tu, Long Mantis, and Buried Tiger's bodies, 3 different kinds of divine power burst out of the ground like high fountains bursting out of the ground. In the blink of an eye, it melted with the bodies of Tu and the rest of them that had been rotted and dying. Under the influence of the will of the East and the rules of the chessboard world, it wriggled and transformed crazily, gradually condensing into a new life form. It could be seen that they were no longer the original Tu, Long Mantis, and Burial Tiger. Not only were their appearances distorted, even their incomplete souls were changing, forming some strange creature controlled by the will of the East. No matter what, Tu and the others stood up and stood in front of Yu Yang again. In the chessboard world, no one could summon grimoires or beasts. Dongfang himself was also within this law. However, the cunning Dongfang had used the method of resurrecting Tu and the others to create brand new battle puppets to replace the beasts that could not be summoned into the chessboard world. The light of wisdom flashed in Yu Yang's eyes. Heaven Eye's divine vision, which could see through the godly realm after the reversal of fate, instantly broke through the barriers set by the will of the East. In this mysterious chessboard world, all the information of the resurrected Tu and the others was displayed in Yu Yang's mind. Chessboard Resurrection War Slave, Tu of the Sky Swallowing Clan, reborn with divine power, survived under the chessboard law. Special skills: Mud Puppet, Substitution, Weakening. Young Master Tu, who was standing in the middle, had now become a monster dripping with mucus. His skin was like rotten soil. Although he had stood up, sticky things kept falling to the ground from his body and limbs, forming a disgusting pile of mucus. He could no longer be called a human. He had completely mutated into a monster. Seeing his current appearance, if they had not seen it with their own eyes, even his father Tu Shi, Uncle Tu Wan, and brother Tu Shi would not have dared to admit that this was the original elegant and handsome young Master Tu. Heaven Eye's divine vision had already seen through the nature of the monster Tu. But Yu Yang believed it. Even so, Tu, who had become a monster, still had many secret abilities, hidden under this disgusting appearance. The East would not easily create a useless war slave. He had painstakingly planned it, so there must be another way. Similar to the monster Tu, his original companions, the Mantis and Burial Tiger of the Zerg clan, had also greatly changed and mutated their bodies. The green poison on the Mantis's body became stronger, and its head swelled into a ball. Its body swelled up nearly 100 times. It was like the mother body of the Zerg clan. Inside, there were strange eggs of various sizes rolling, looking as if they were about to break out of the body. At this moment, the information in Yu Yang's Heaven Eye's divine vision was: Chessboard Resurrection War Slave, original body of the Mantis of the Zerg clan, reborn with divine power, survived under the chessboard law, special skills: Vomit, Egg-laying, Parasitism. On the other side, the information of the Burial Tiger, whose body was also severely deformed and could not be restored to its original appearance, and the appearance of its body had changed almost to that of a sea urchin, was: Chessboard Resurrection War Slave, original body of the Eleoptera clan, Burial Tiger, reborn with divine power, survived under the chessboard law, special skills: Needle Stab, Return, Bleeding. Facing these 3 war slaves that were not war beasts but were better than war beasts, Yu Yang frowned. This was definitely not something that could be easily dealt with. That cunning guy from the east would not waste his divine power to create some useless things. Since he had created them like this, then there must be a conspiracy. What was more difficult was how to resolve the trap that the East had meticulously planned in the chessboard world under the joint attack of Tu Wan, Captain, Tu Sure, and Honorable Indestructible. Grey Wolf was not by his side. He was alone, so how could he deal with these dirty tricks that came from all directions? Haha, isn't this Titan Yu, known as the #1 expert in Tong Tian Tower? Why do you look so distressed? Quickly use your heaven-defying luck and abnormal talent to turn the situation around. Ha ha ha, without the protection of the Conqueror Queen, without the protection of Tong Tian Tower, you are not even as weak as a baby. Captain laughed wildly. Compared to the prison emperor, you are still too young. At least, the prison emperor Zhan Feng would never fall for such tricks. Honorable Indestructible also mocked mercilessly. As fast as lightning, a ray of divine light flashed across the chessboard world. The time it took for it to become invisible, for it to return to silence, was definitely less than 1,000th of a second. Unfortunately, such a swift and stealthy assassination did not succeed. It was as if Yu Yang had grown eyes at the back of his head. He had already predicted it and dodged it. He gently moved a step forward with his left leg, and steadily took a step forward. His right leg did not move at all, and he even cautiously stood in his original position, afraid that an accident would happen, and immediately retreated to his original position. Yu Yang did not do anything. He only took a step forward. However, in the next second, the entire chessboard world changed. The sky was no longer the same sky, and the ground was no longer the same ground. Yu Yang realized that he had stepped into a dead black swamp. He soared into the air, and found that the ground had turned into a swamp without him noticing. He couldn't see the end of it, and countless death chi was bubbling up from the mud. Looking around, it was like a pot of boiling, stinky porridge. Yu Yang moved his mind, and quickly flew away from this terrifying swamp. Dong! The boundless sky seemed to have a cover, and when Yu Yang crashed into it, it was more painful than crashing into a thick iron wall. What was more terrifying was that the sky seemed to have been pierced by Yu Yang, and a suction force that was even more terrifying than a black hole was crazily swallowing everything around it. Yu Yang was shocked and quickly retreated. He jumped down lightly, and the distance between the sky and the ground was infinitely shortened. Yu Yang realized that he could reach the swamp that was originally 10,000 meters below him with just a stretch of his hand. Destruction! Yu Yang was enraged. They wanted to use such a small trick to attack him? Did they really think that the 3 elements of destruction, creation, and eternity that he had comprehended in the Treasure Codex of Trials were fake? There was no need for any assistance, just his will. He immediately destroyed the surrounding chessboard world, returning it to its original chaotic state. Everything turned to dust, and everything returned to nothingness. After the world was destroyed, Yu Yang realized that the chessboard world had recovered, and he had returned to the initial state when he took the first step. However, everything that he had experienced was still there. The pain of his head crashing into the ground was still there, and even the mud under his feet was clearly imprinted on the ground. If Yu Yang had not comprehended the sovereign's will and the true God realm, he would have been sealed in the illusion, and there would be no possibility of him ever seeing the light of day again. Although the illusion was an illusion, it truly existed. It was created by the divine power of the East, and it died because of Yu Yang's destruction. It disappeared in a flash, but the life and death it brought was the most real existence. Interesting. However, Dongfang, do you really think you can take my life with such a small trick? Yu Yang believed that Dongfang still had more tricks up his sleeve. If he casually revealed the power he had, it would be difficult for him to achieve the best result. There was a proverb that went like this: only the most patient fisherman could catch the biggest fish. Yu Yang had pretended to be a weakling and kept a low profile for so long in order to lure Dong Fang. If he did not seize the opportunity to catch this big fish, and allowed Dong Fang to escape, it would not be easy to catch him in the future. Yu Yang really wanted to take out the sword of fate and slash people, but he gritted his teeth and endured it. Dong Fang did not come out. He would play with them for a while. When Dong Fang was most confident in making his move and felt that he would definitely die, he would give him a huge surprise when he came out for the final blow. It might not work in other places, Dong Fang was too cunning, but in this chessboard world that he had personally created, Dong Fang would definitely have enough confidence to win this battle. So, he just had to wait for Dong Fang to make his move. Of course, before that most important moment, Yu Yang felt that he had to perform a little bit more impressive, otherwise, Dong Fang would definitely be suspicious. It's my turn. The divine light on Yu Yang's face was as bright as the moon. His right index finger pointed forward. Next, let me show you Heaven Realm invaders what is the wrath of a Tong Tian Tower martial artist. A blazing divine flame. It appeared on top of Yu Yang's fist. A terrifying destructive aura erupted from Yu Yang's body. His hair stood up because of his anger, and his clothes fluttered without any wind. Silver lightning wildly danced around his body, crackling. Circles of divine power shockwaves spread out in an extremely gentle manner, as if they had no power at all. It was the complete opposite of its master's destructive and angry will. There was no high-speed movement or flight, and no hidden movements. Similarly, he took a step forward. This time, it was his right leg that stepped forward heavily, leaving a deep imprint on the ground. But in an instant, a miracle happened. Yu Yang actually crossed over thousands of barriers and stepped in front of the captain of the Golden Deity. Facing each other, the distance between the two was less than a meter, and they could reach each other easily. Yu Yang looked coldly at the captain, as if he was looking at a slightly larger golden fly. Damn it! The proud captain was enraged by Yu Yang's disdainful gaze. His huge fist carried the divine power of thunder and heavily smashed towards Yu Yang. At the same time, both his feet stepped on the ground, and he soared into the sky and attacked with all his strength. The chessboard world also changed. Heaven and earth, in an instant, were completely reversed, and gravity reversed. Together with the captain's attack, it gave Yu Yang a completely wrong sense of direction and upside down. Scram! Yu Yang did not raise his head, nor did he use his eyes to look. He casually stretched out his hand. To the back of his head, like swatting away a buzzing fly in the sky, he hit the captain's face with his palm, ignoring the upside-down world and everything around him. The captain screamed, and several big teeth fell out. Along with blood, they splattered in the air. Under Yu Yang's palm, he rolled around powerlessly and flew out like an arrow. He crashed into a mountain peak 10,000 meters away and exploded with a loud bang. Unable to stop his momentum, he continued to crash into the peak of a second mountain far away. When he finally stabilized his body, he had no time to heal his injuries with divine power and change his embarrassing appearance. Yu Yang had already appeared behind him. He stepped out. Heavily, he stepped on the captain's back, crushing the angry, frightened, and embarrassed number 1 guard of the central shrine, Nagato giant god, under his foot. Chapter 13-15. The captain was furious. No one had ever humiliated him like this. Even the most powerful expert in the central shrine, the supreme heavenly chariot of the temple, had never dealt such a humiliating blow to him. Boom, 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 boom. Thousands of beams of divine light burst forth from the captain's body. Each beam of divine light formed an incomparably sharp divine sword that automatically defended. The captain's golden divine body swelled and changed shape. The divine power stored deep within his body was automatically unleashed due to his extreme anger. The rarely seen second form almost instantly appeared in front of everyone. Huge horns twisted and curved, sharp teeth like daggers, and long canine teeth protruded out of his lips. Crazed, tsunami-like bloodthirst surged in his green eyes. Giant claws that could tear everything apart extended from his fingers and toes. Body hair and spikes shaped like porcupines, all of them stood on end. Under the coordination of the Eastern chessboard world's rules, the unsealed divine power rose to the second form. The captain's mind remained the same. The only thing that changed was the endless increase in his hatred for his opponent, Yu Yang. He waved his claws between heaven and earth as if he was casually sweeping them. The space under his claws shattered, and a strange door appeared. The inscriptions on it were simple and unadorned, and the patterns were profound and obscure. The heavy strange door slowly opened. Endless divine light surged out from inside and fell on the captain's body. The brilliance was even brighter than the afternoon sun. The captain's strength had soared 10 times after he unsealed his beast form, and his power increased by more than 10 times. All the negative effects of Yu Yang's previous attack disappeared. Even the spine that Yu Yang had broken with his foot just now grew bone spikes that looked like armor. Outside the door, the power of the divine light surged out and perfectly merged with the power of the Eastern chessboard world's rules, twisting the captain's and the Eastern divine-level experts' wills into an unshakable divine chain. Huh! Yu Yang suddenly realized that something was wrong. The monsters Tu-Yu, Long Mantis, and Buried Tiger, who had become the Eastern puppet war slaves 10,000 meters away, ignored space and distance, and came out of the strange door one by one. After they passed through the strange door, their strength also soared. Although it was not as much as the captain's 10 times increase, it was at least 3 to 5 times the increase. What kind of door was this? It wasn't a divine weapon or a treasure beast. It wasn't an inherent skill or a grimoire domain. What kind of existence was it exactly? The only thing that Yu Yang could be sure of was that the captain's so-called Nagato Giant God title was definitely related to this ancient and mysterious door. After the door was opened, the first to attack was not the captain. It was Tu-Yu, a monstrous war slave who no longer had his own independent thoughts, a pitiful worm that even his own father had casually abandoned to become someone else's sacrifice. Tu-Yu sank into the ground, and when it crawled out again, there were already 2 more clones. Because the 3 were so similar, others could not tell which was the real one and which were the clones. They could only see 3 identical mud puppets wriggling in front of them in a disgusting manner. Tu-Yu and the 2 clones rushed towards Yu Yang at the same time. Their speed was not fast, but in the chessboard world, they only took a few steps forward to cross a distance of 10,000 meters and directly rushed to Yu Yang. And the one who was affected was Yu Yang. No matter how he tried to retreat, he was still 1 step away from the enemy. He could not really get rid of them at all. Get lost. Yu Yang found that the rules of the chessboard world were working, so he no longer dodged. Gently, he stretched out his left hand. He bent his index finger. With a casual flick, it was even lighter than flicking a fly. In an instant, the head of the middle of the 3 mud puppets in front of him was flicked thousands of meters away. The clay doll was not damaged at all. It was headless and did not fall, but there was a kind of backlash force. It was as if an extremely sharp needle was pricking his body. The moment Yu Yang attacked, he felt pain. The most terrifying thing was that the back of his head seemed to have been hit by a 10,000-ton hammer. There was a buzzing sound and he saw stars. He almost fainted. Yu Yang could not help but stretch out his hand and touch the back of his head. He found that there was a small wound on the back of his head. It was as if he had suffered a sneak attack from a powerful god-level expert and was hit by a heavy finger. The way the wound appeared was very strange. While Yu Yang was in a temporary daze, the other 2 mud puppets waved their ugly arms at the same time. They danced wildly and attacked Yu Yang in front of them. You are the real Tu Yu. Yu Yang's heaven eyes, divine eye flashed. Instead of retreating, he advanced and threw a burst fist at the real body of the monster Tu Yu. Pow! He hit it. But when Yu Yang retracted his fist, he found that his body was actually suffering from some kind of evil curse that could not be dispelled. He felt waves of weakness. If he did not forcefully support his waist and legs, he would have probably coughed twice and collapsed on the ground powerlessly. The gentle breeze that blew across the world was supposed to be pleasant and refreshing. It could relieve the heat of summer. But when it blew on Yu Yang's body, Yu Yang felt as if he was being cut by invisible knives. That kind of discomfort was like a sick man who was dozens of times weaker than he was when he suddenly went outside and felt the cold wind blowing on him. Not to mention the cursed Yu Yang, even the spectators noticed that something was wrong. Yu Yang used all his strength to retreat and dodge the attack of Tu Yu's other clone. He suddenly realized that the captain was standing behind him. The captain, who had unsealed his form and was strengthened by the strange door and had perfectly fused with the chessboard world, was not in a hurry to attack. Instead, he looked coldly at Yu Yang, who was incomparably weak and sweating profusely even when he stood up, like a hunter watching his prey that had fallen into a trap. Titan Yu, I can't deny that you are a genius. However, what I want to say is that you are still too inexperienced. The captain's giant claw smashed onto Yu Yang's back. At the same time, he roared out from his beast mouth in a serious manner, "You, who only rose to this level by relying on the sacrifice of your companions and relatives, do you really know how to use the power of a god? Do you truly understand the true nature of god power? You don't understand any of this. Without hundreds and thousands of years of comprehension, no matter how smart you are still just a cunning ant. Fundamentally, you are still not a divine ranker, let alone the anger of a Tong Tian Tower warrior. That is called the moaning of a weakling, just like you are now." Yu Yang's entire body shot out like a shooting star. In the chessboard world, the world didn't change, but there were countless towering mountains and precipitous ridges waiting for him on his flight path. Yu Yang crashed into the mountain peaks one after another until his flight was completely blocked. This is just the beginning. The captain's eyes flashed with endless bloodthirst and cruelty. He entered through the strange door in his beast form. He waited for him to come out. In the next second, he was already standing on the mountain where Yu Yang had stopped crashing into. Just as he was about to unleash an even more violent power to destroy the entire mountain and cripple Yu Yang, who might have already fainted, Supreme Indestructible suddenly warned him, "Be careful, that isn't Titan Yu." The captain frowned when he heard this. He had originally prepared to attack, but he carefully retracted his sharp claws and went into a defensive state. The mountain that Yu Yang crashed into suddenly became an erupting volcano. Billions of tons of lava and mud shot into the sky, and millstone-sized rocks flew everywhere in the thick smoke and steam. A corner of the chessboard world exploded in the east, but unfortunately, Yu Yang wasn't among them. Looking at the thick smoke billowing out of the volcano, all the god-level martial artists and the spectators were confused. Where did that Titan Yu, who had smashed through 18 mountain peaks before finally crashing in and never coming out, go? Buried in the volcano? Impossible. If it was so easy to kill this brat, then the East wouldn't have joined hands with so many god-level martial artists, and they wouldn't have needed to muster such a large force. The captain waved his hand, and an ancient strange door appeared behind him. As long as the door was there, no matter how the enemy attacked, he would be invincible. The surrounding space shook, and the strange atmosphere became more and more intense. The captain couldn't help but sneer when he saw the two Sure brothers and unfalling supremacy looking on coldly from the side. He turned around and walked toward the strange door, determined to leave for the time being, lest the Titan Yu, who was hiding somewhere, suddenly attacked and retaliated. This fight wasn't just about him, so why did he have to attack all of them? The two Sure brothers and unfalling supremacy wanted to take advantage of him? No way. Just as the captain was halfway into the strange door, about to disappear, suddenly something even stranger happened. An impossible shadow appeared inside the door. The captain's eyes widened. He discovered that the shadow that appeared inside the door was the Titan Yu, who had disappeared earlier. How was this possible? Even Dongfang, whose consciousness was almost half connected, couldn't pass through his door. Titan Yu was an enemy? How did he do it? He couldn't react in time. He couldn't even think. The divine light sword that the captain used to protect his body had already been broken. Yu Yang smashed into the captain's face with the force of shattering 18 mountain peaks, carrying an unshakable and unshakable Ji Zun's will. Swap! With a command, the monster Tu Yu, who was now a war slave puppet, suddenly turned into a shadow and switched places with the captain that Yu Yang had crashed into. While Yu Yang was attacking the captain with all his strength, Tu Yu and Heaven slaughtering God slaughtering world finally found the best opportunity. The two of them rushed forward in a frenzy, one turning into thousands of blood-red divine blades, the other turning into a mountain giant, attacking Yu Yang who was rushing out of the strange door. Yu Yang was completely defenseless, and was hit by all of them. However, the one who let out a miserable howl and fell to the ground wasn't Titan Yu, but the great God slaughtering world, who had been watching from the side in time. Tu Wan was baffled. He hadn't provoked this Titan Yu, and he had been standing far away when the two of them attacked him. This matter had nothing to do with him, so how did it turn out like this? However, this was the truth. The bloody wounds on his body and the shattered and broken spine all told him that this unexpected disaster was real. Ah! Tu Wan wanted to ask why, but when he opened his mouth, all that came out was a miserable howl. What happened? The twin-headed Guong and the others who were watching the battle didn't understand. Just a second ago, Titan Yu was at a disadvantage, and was defeated by slaughtering world and sovereign indestructible. Who knew that just a second later, the one who fell was Tu Wan, who was like an outsider? What had happened in that 1 second? Moreover, why was Titan Yu able to walk out of the captain's strange door? Curiosity gnawed at their hearts like a poisonous snake. Unfortunately, with their eyesight, they couldn't see the truth at all. Everyone present, apart from the demon god who had been hiding the truth from everyone, there was no one else who could see the entire process, let alone find out the truth of the mystery. So, spontaneously, everyone raised their eyes and looked at the monster emperor, including the captain who was shocked. As the Nagato giant god, he did not see clearly what happened. The corner of the monster emperor's lip. A faint smile appeared on his face. Just as everyone's curiosity was about to explode, he suddenly said a strange name that no one would have expected. Puff. Chapter 13:16. Pu Gui. It was a special type of beast that was rarely seen in the heaven realm. It was very unique because it was a semi-virtual spiritual life form. Some of its abilities were very outstanding, but its intelligence, potential and ability to evolve and mutate were relatively weak. Therefore, it was not liked by the Heaven Realm Rankers. Even the Heaven Realm Rankers and above rarely took the initiative to form a contract with this kind of special beast that was difficult to coordinate with its master. Potential and intelligence were always the most important training points for a beast. A beast could have no combat power, but it couldn't have no potential and intelligence. If it wasn't for the Goblin Emperor pointing out a Pu Gui suddenly appeared. Even if the two-headed dragon Guong and the others watched for 3 days and 3 nights, they still wouldn't be able to guess that Yu Yang used a special beast that almost no one in the Heaven Realm had any interest in to turn the tide of the battle. It doesn't look like it. The only person who still had doubts was the arrogant man. Although he wasn't familiar with the various beasts in the Heaven Realm, He felt that he had heard of or seen them before. The legendary Pu Gui didn't look like this at all. The slender figure in front of him that was almost mistaken for Titan Yu already had a physical body. How was it a semi-virtual spiritual life form? Furthermore, the Pu Gui had always had low intelligence and little potential. How could it be the person in front of him? The person in front of him was already a divine beast, infinitely close to a real human. He had the most real flesh and blood. The light in his eyes was not inferior to any other intelligent life form. How could it be the Pu Gui that was destined to never reach a high realm or even evolve into a holy beast? The most important thing was that the Pu Gui was a spiritual life form without gender. The one in front of him. It was a stunning woman, a beautiful woman. The Pu Gui that Yu Yang had almost forgotten about was now standing beside him. Forget about outsiders. Even Fatty Hai and Yi Kong wouldn't be able to recognize that the beauty in front of them was the Pu Gui that had the appearance of a woman but was completely a spiritual life form. She was wearing a battle armor similar to the moon battle armor, which was formed by the power of fate that she carried on her back. On the surface, it looked like a battle armor, but in fact, it was the symbol of her reversal of fate, rebirth, evolution, mutation, and ascension to become a divine beast. It was an eternal existence that coexisted with the fate of her master, but in form, it was controlled by her own free will. That was because when Yu Yang, the owner that it had never formed a contract with, was at his most difficult time, it did not hesitate to step forward and sacrifice itself. Pu Gui had obtained the greatest reward in her life. Promoted to a divine beast. Furthermore, they would forever be one with their master's fate. They would no longer wander around in their own fragile lives. They had completely transcended the inherent fate of the Pu Gui clan in their spiritual lives and had completely transformed into another form of existence. Unique in the entire world. Right now, she was fated to be one with him. She was a divine beast that could never be separated. She was destined to be with him, and there was no need for a contract. She is no longer a Pu Gui. She is now a completely new war beast. Furthermore, even among all the divine beasts, she is an extremely outstanding existence. The Fey Emperor gave her a very high evaluation. Then what happened to Tu Wan? Even if a Pu Gui evolved into a divine beast came out to help Titan Yu, it has nothing to do with Tu Wan. Someone did not understand. Maybe Tu Wan's character is not good, he has done too many bad things. Someone explained. Not having a good character is indeed a very scary thing. Everyone was whispering. Nonsense. Tu Wan struggled in pain and shouted, "Are you all idiots and blind? This has nothing to do with my character. I was hit by the enemy's dirty tricks, that's why I became like this." This was a deliberate sneak attack by Titan Yu. Everyone listened. They all looked at Yu Yang. Everyone wanted to hear how Yu Yang would explain. Yu Yang spread out his hands and shrugged his shoulders. "I won't deny that I did it. But if Mr. Tu Wan doesn't feel sad, then let me clarify that this was definitely not an intentional action. It was just a mistake. I had originally intended to rebound the attack on Supreme Indestructible, but who knew that Supreme Indestructible would slip away too quickly? As a result, Mr. Tu Wan was unfortunate enough to fall into my trap. I personally express my deep sympathy and condolences for Mr. Tu Wan's misfortune, and strongly condemn and protest Ji Wudi's irresponsible action of slipping away. How could you be so heartless as to abandon your good friend Mr. Tu Wan? And great Captain God, could it be that you have already forgotten Mr. Tu Wan's blooming chrysanthemum at the Great Ming Lake? When everyone heard this, they all understood. As expected, it was still a problem with Tu Wan's character. As for the passionate gay relationship between him and Ji Wudi, Captain God, Dong Feng and the other divine rankers, everyone expressed their interest and curiosity. They also took out enough patience to wait for the development of the situation. Fighting and killing did not seem to be suitable for everyone, but this did not stop them from gloating. They could not participate in the battle, they could not cause others to be unlucky, but even so, they could stand outside and watch others suffer. That was also a good thing to see. Ji Wudi, who was shot, did not say anything. He did not bother to explain himself. Humph! Captain God did not say anything. They were all divine rankers. They had experienced hundreds of battles. They did not care about the enemy's verbal attack. What they cared more about was the special method Yu Yang used to neutralize the attack. How did this Yu clan's third young master do it? How did he transfer all the pain he had suffered to Tu Wan? If Titan Yu used Pu Gui's special ability, how did he hide it from everyone's eyes and do it in front of everyone's eyes? Even if these were not mentioned, how did this Pu Gui, who had inexplicably become a divine beast, appear in the chessboard world? In the chessboard world, one could not summon beasts or use treasures. Even grimoires were forbidden. How did Pu Gui enter? Would Dongfang watch a Pu Gui divine beast enter without doing anything? No one knew the real answer, including the Fey Emperor who was watching the battle. The Fey Emperor discovered Pu Gui's appearance earlier than everyone else, and not the reason why she appeared in this world. "Captain, close your door." Dongfang's voice came from the distant sky. "No, there is absolutely no problem with my door. My door is the guardian door of the central shrine. No one, no living being, without my permission, can pass through it. Titan Yu coming out from the door was an illusion. His eyes were deceiving him, it was not real. I did not receive any warnings from the door, nor did I receive any hints about passing through it." Captain God argued with Dongfang. He believed that his door would not have any problems, because he was the #1 guard of the central shrine, the giant god Nagato. "There is no problem with your door, but Titan, you should also be able to use your door. Your door is no longer the guardian door, but a backdoor in the chessboard world that people can use at any time." Heaven Butcher God Tu Shi's voice became sharp. "Close the door first." Supreme Buddha's opinion was also in favor of Dongfang and Tu Shi's judgment. He did not like Dongfang, and it could even be said that he had always been hostile to Dongfang. But he, who secretly opposed Dongfang, also knew about it. Dongfang, anyone could hate him or despise him, but no one had the right to doubt him or deny him. If Dongfang was wrong, he believed that not many people in the heaven realm would be able to find the real answer. This was Dongfang. Captain God Tu Shi waved his sharp claws indignantly. He, who had transformed into a beast, almost lost control of his emotions. But in the end, he endured it and did as his ally asked. He closed the guardian door. In the sky, another wave of ripples was produced, just like the ripples on the surface of water caused by a gentle breeze. Circle after circle, the ripples spread out in an extremely gentle manner. However, the gate wasn't closed. The ancient and profound guardian gate didn't close as everyone had expected. It was still wide open. "What are you doing?" Tu Shi's voice was like a sharp awl. Could it be that he still wanted to fight at a time like this? Even if he was unhappy, couldn't he think about the big picture first? Titan Yu, the son of Tong Tian Tower, had once again reversed the situation. Could it be that he really wanted to turn the situation around and beat everyone out of Tong Tian Tower like fallen flowers? No, it's not me. Captain God Tu's face suddenly turned as white as paper, and sweat appeared on his forehead. "If it's not you, then is it me?" Tu Shi was completely enraged. Apart from you, who was the #1 guard of the central shrine? Who else could control the door? Who else had such a special innate ability? If he didn't want to close the door, he didn't need to put on such a pretentious act and use such a ridiculous attitude to brush everyone off, right? This was too much. The monster emperor in the distance was smiling, as if he was watching a good show of dogs biting each other. The people around him were also watching with great interest. Their eyes were glued to the scene, not willing to miss even half a second. They were deeply afraid that they would miss out on the exciting process, lest they regret it for the rest of their lives. The arrogant man stared at Yu Yang. He had a feeling. He felt that the real reason or the answer should not be on the captain, but on Titan Yu. Yu Yang clapped his hands and attracted everyone's attention. His smile was as bright as the sun, and his voice was as sincere as an old friend who had not seen each other for many years. He very kindly defended the captain. Actually, you have all misunderstood. How can you blame the #1 guard of the central shrine, the giant god Nagato captain, for not guarding the door well? Actually, he did a very good job. In my opinion, he is much more competent than my watchdog, Grey Wolf. As soon as he said this, the captain's face immediately turned purple like ink. Yu Yang acted as if he didn't see anything, and smiled as if there was no one else present, guarding the door for free and being ordered around. It's already too much not to throw a bone as a reward. Still shouting and yelling, what do you think I am? Even if I'm a watchdog, I'm still protected by the livestock protection law. You guys are really too much. After the captain heard it, his face turned purple all of a sudden. Without waiting for the crowd to laugh out loud, it turned indigo blue, and finally from blue to red, becoming blood red. That face seemed as if it could drip blood at any time. Tu Wan saw this scene in pain and suddenly felt that he was actually quite lucky. He only suffered external injuries. Although the pain was excruciating, his heart was still barely able to bear it. If he were to be replaced by the captain with this thought in mind, Tu Wan could not help but shiver. He had the feeling that he would die of anger, and his stomach would swell up and finally explode in front of this terrifying Titan Yu with a loud bang. Compared to the captain, Tu Wan discovered that although he was in excruciating pain, it was still considered light. After Yu Yang defended the captain for a while, he enthusiastically defended him. He casually stretched out his hand and pointed in front of him. An extremely gorgeous door suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Compared to the captain's original simple and mysterious door, Yu Yang's newly opened door was simply the most gorgeous and magnificent door in the world. Even the most beautiful words and phrases couldn't accurately describe the magnificence of this door. Of course, this gorgeous door wasn't the only one. With a light tap of Yu Yang's finger, 2 more green and elegant doors appeared in front of him, one on the left and one on the right, a dark and serene door. 3 doors lined up in front of him. No matter how one looked at it, it was impossible to tell the difference between these 3 doors and the captain's previously opened door. What? When Yu Yang opened these 3 doors, not only Tu Shi, the captain and the others, even the invisible Eastern Palace Master, who had been controlling the entire battle, couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Chapter 13:17. Your door is fake. Although the captain could not see the difference between the door created by Yu Yang and his own, he believed that in the entire heaven realm, other than himself who had the Nagato innate skill, there would not be a second person who could create a door. Even if a god ranker created a similar door, it would definitely be fake. It had the appearance of a door, but it did not have the characteristics of a door. After the captain advanced to god rank, he spent at least 3,000 years to research and excavate his own innate skill to the maximum before finally creating 2 divine doors that were one with his own god power and will. Especially the first guardian door, he spent close to 2,000 years to perfectly form it. The difficulty was no less than creating a small world. This Titan Yu in front of him had never come into contact with a similar door, nor did he have this kind of innate skill. How could he create a similar door just by looking at it? Furthermore, he created 3 divine doors in one go. This was absolutely impossible. Thus, the captain was 100% sure that these 3 doors were fake. They only looked similar. That was why everyone was confused. My door is the most unique guardian door in the heaven realm. As long as it exists, no power can pass through. Furthermore, under my will, all those who fail will be imprisoned in the world of the door. It is not as simple as the door that you see with your eyes. Its function is not just to pass through. Of course, the guardian door had even more important secrets, but the captain would not easily reveal them. He only revealed a part of the characteristics of the guardian door that he created. Through these abilities that others could not possess, he used them to counter Titan Yu, who was trying to copy the appearance of the door to deceive everyone. God power and a person's unique innate skill, is it something that you, a country bumpkin from Tong Tian Tower, can play with? The door and the world behind it. A wimpy brat like you will never understand. This was the confidence of the number one guard of the central shrine, the Nagato giant god cough cough. Tu Wan, who had used his god power to heal his injuries with great difficulty, was still a little weak and had not recovered to his peak condition. He was quietly distancing himself from Yu Yang. He had had enough. Regardless of whether this brat Titan Yu knew how to create a door, whether he could use other people's abilities, or what other techniques he did not want to understand any of them. Distancing himself was the safest. Perhaps they were fated to oppose each other. Tu Wan felt that ever since he first laid eyes on Yu Titan, he had always been plagued by misfortune. Nothing good had ever happened to him. Just now, Autarch Indestructible and the others had joined forces to launch a sneak attack on Titan Yu. That kid was completely unscathed, but Autarch Indestructible had nearly lost his skin and bones. If not for the fact that he had a god body, he would have died 10,000 times over. Whatever demon-slaying beast, whatever gate of God, who cared how he did it? As long as it appeared, no one wanted to question it, and no one wanted to get close to it. In any case, as long as they got close to the god of plague, Titan Yu, nothing good would happen. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't leave the chessboard world freely, Tu Wan would have quit the game. Why was he the one who was injured when others were fighting? You can't play people like this. Even if one's character was bad, there should be a limit, okay? Besides, this wasn't a problem with one's character at all. This was infuriating. Don't be discriminated against a second time. Feeling deeply wronged, Tu Wan silently retreated, intending to distance himself from the battlefield and distance himself from Titan Yu, his nemesis. However, no matter how low-key he was destined to be unable to escape the teasing of fate. It was fine if he didn't move. The moment he moved, he was discovered by Ji Indestructible, who was observing the whole scene calmly. The 5-meter-tall Tu Wan was basically a dwarf in front of the 20-meter-tall Ji Indestructible, who had a strong innate skill. The difference in realm and strength between the two was also obvious. Tu Wan was unhappy and wanted to retreat. His lack of self-awareness as a cannon fodder had angered Ji Indestructible. Faster than lightning by 100 times, Ji Indestructible appeared behind Tu Wan in an instant. With a big kick, he kicked Tu Wan towards Yu Yang. He directly crashed into the door of elegance that was full of green and vitality. Dong Feng, who was controlling the entire chessboard world behind the scenes, did not object. Instead, he cooperated and changed the space of the chessboard world, causing Tu Wan, who was struggling, to fall into the graceful door like a drowning ghost. Would the door created by Titan Yu really have the same special characteristics as the Gate of God created by Chang Wei? 1 second later, the answer was out. The door opened, and a battered and exhausted black donkey rushed out, running away from Titan Yu while screaming. What was going on? Tu Wan was clearly the one who entered, so why did a stupid donkey rush out? Everyone was dumbfounded. Could it be that the door created by Titan Yu was the Real Gate of God? The Yao Emperor was stunned at first, then laughed loudly. The spectators all turned to look at him. But he refused to say anything. He was enjoying all the fun and laughter alone, which made people jealous. It was not just him. Even Ji Indestructible, Chang Wei, and the others who kicked Tu Wan and also laughed loudly. The only one who was more serious was Tu Wan's big brother, God Tu Shur. He shot out a beam of divine light that landed on the black donkey, seemingly using his divine power and will to dispel some kind of power. The black donkey's body changed shape, and with a puff, it returned to the panic-stricken Tu Wan. "What did you see in the door?" Finally finished laughing, Ji Indestructible didn't have the self-awareness to kick Tu Wan to his death, and instead asked Tu Wan how he felt. "Damn it!" Tu Wan cursed softly. If it wasn't for the fact that his strength was so much lower than his opponent's, he would have kicked him back. This isn't the gate of God, it's just a small trick of transformation. After seeing it, Chang Wei secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He realized that the gate of God created by Titan Yu wasn't like the one he created, but something else. This discovery allowed him to put down the huge rock that was hanging in his heart. If Titan Yu really had the ability to infer many things from one instance and create the gate of God with just one look, then there was no need to fight this battle. If that kind of person that was even more monstrous than a pervert really existed, then there was no way to fight at all. Transformation gate? Ji Indestructible obviously saw something strange, but he wasn't too sure. It's a very good imitation, but it seems to only have the ability to transform. Although Tu Shur's tone was light, he was still very cautious. Wrong, this is the gate of knowledge. Yu Yang waved his hand, even imitating Chang Wei's confidence. With a casual wave of his hand, the green and lively graceful gate flashed, and a line of words appeared. These words weren't written in the Heaven Realm or Tong Tian Tower, nor were they runes. Instead, they were square words that were pieced together with a special kind of stroke. They were arranged very neatly. At first, they didn't feel it, but after looking at it for a long time, they could feel an indescribable sense of harmony and beauty. Even though they didn't recognize it, everyone present believed that this was a mature language. Perhaps it was a language that had been passed down since ancient times, but it had already been lost in the present day, so no one could recognize it anymore. These square words were arranged in a strange way in the sky. Dark plum blossoms lying on a branch, hurt at the bottom. Asking from afar, lying like water, easily reaching a stupid donkey. Everyone could see it clearly, but no one could recognize it. They stared at each other. No one could understand the meaning of these words. Even the most knowledgeable palace master Dong Feng was no exception. This is the fundamental meaning of the gate of knowledge. Anyone who enters this gate of knowledge, and is unable to decipher the secret of the gate will be punished by the god's power and become a donkey. Yu Yang held back his laughter and introduced his masterpiece to everyone with a deadpan expression. In the end, he even sighed and said, "As a god tier, you can't even recognize a few lines of words. How pitiful. That's why I say that it's scary to be uneducated." Tu Wan's face turned green. Right now, he wished that he could immediately find a hole to hide in. It wasn't that he had never been slapped in the face before, but he had never been slapped so badly before. He was a god-tier ranker. How did he suddenly become an illiterate idiot? He was even slapped in the face in front of everyone's eyes. He really couldn't close his eyes even if he died. It's just a trap. It's not some god gate at all. The captain finally understood. Titan Yu didn't even know how to use a gate, nor did he know how to create a gate. He only made a trap that looked like a gate. However, even so, he was still shocked. From seeing it to imitating it and then using it, how long did it take for Titan Yu to use it? Dong Feng said that this brat was a threat, and it was not wrong at all. With such abnormal intelligence and inherent skill, if this brat was allowed to train for 1,000 or a few hundred years, then the entire Heaven Realm would probably be destroyed by him, let alone the Heaven Realm. Let's try again. Supreme Indestructible suddenly appeared behind Tu Wan, who was squatting on the ground dejectedly. With a flying kick, he sent the unlucky Tu Wan flying towards the second gate in the row in front of Yu Yang. In other words, it was the magnificent door in the middle. Tu-Wan screamed. He wanted to ask why it was him again, but as a cannon fodder, he didn't even have the right to speak. Let alone the captain and Dong Fang, even Tu Shi, who was his own brother, didn't object. He calmly observed the situation like an outsider. Boom! The magnificent gate opened again in less than a second after it closed. Countless rays of light shot into the sky. In the center of the light, there was a black shadow that fell to the ground like a dead dog. Everyone focused their gazes and saw that the black shadow was no longer a donkey, but a weak monster that was so ugly that it was unbearable to look at. This incomparably ugly little monster was trembling as it stood in the center, feeling wronged as it endured the inhumane gazes of the crowd. It was still the big brother, Tu Shi, who used a bright red divine light to disperse the power of the magnificent gate, allowing the ugly little monster to return to Tu-Wan's real body. Tu-Wan recovered and immediately cried. He was crying like a waterfall. The blow was too big. There was nothing he could do. Not to mention his allies and spectators, even his enemy, Yu Yang, felt pity for him. What kind of trap is this? Beast transformation gate? The captain pretended to be disdainful. He realized that the power of this gate was completely different from the previous one, but the effect was similar. He was puzzled. Wrong, this is the gate of justice. Yu Yang retorted without hesitation. Then he waved his hand again. The pirated action made the original captain's face turn as black as ink, but Yu Yang didn't seem to notice it at all. He cheerfully introduced it to everyone. Do you see these words? This is the complete mystery of the Gate of Justice. The mystery he was talking about was actually a line of words. Cats eat fish, dogs eat meat, Ultraman fights small monsters. According to what Yu Yang had said, all intruders who were unable to decipher the mysteries of the Gate of Justice, if they didn't have the slightest sense of justice, would be punished by God's power. Everyone turned to look at Tu-Wan. Most of them looked at him with disdain. Only the arrogant man said in a sympathetic tone, "It doesn't matter if you don't have a sense of justice. It's only appropriate to be evil. However, as a divine level who thinks highly of himself, you don't even have the slightest sense of justice. It does seem a little strange. Alright, maybe I'm just imagining things." Hearing the arrogant man's words, Tu-Wan was even more heartbroken. The battlefield was silent for a long time. Everyone was thinking of a way to deal with this. This Titan Yu was able to set up so many traps in the chessboard world. He couldn't underestimate his opponent too much. What wave of attacks should he unleash next to be able to kill him? Just as Tu Shi and the captain were thinking hard, Dong Fang suddenly said, "Titan Yu, if this is all of your understanding of your abilities, then this battle is about to end. Don't forget, this is a world that I created. As long as my will doesn't allow this kind of existence, then there won't be any gate in the chessboard world, no matter if it's a real gate or a fake gate." After saying that, there was a flash of brilliance in the chessboard world. Whether it was the captain's guarding gate or the 3 god gates created by Yu Yang, they all disappeared without a trace. Chapter 13:18. The disappearance of all the doors in the world of the chessboard was just the beginning. Yu Yang immediately discovered that the place where he was standing had also undergone a strange change. It was as if he had fallen into a well, surrounded by a transparent space barrier. Yu Yang could see that the enemy was approaching him, but he was trapped and could not make any effective evasive maneuvers. Because, apart from the top of his head, there were no other exits. Yu Yang, who could not move his body freely, could only watch as the enemy attacked him. Under the suppression of the natural talent and the law of will of the East, the world of the chessboard was even more terrifying than a real chessboard. Now, Yu Yang was a chess piece that was restricted by the rules. He was like the commander in a chess game, who could not leave the 9 squares no matter how he moved. The enemy, however, was not restricted by the rules. The captain, the world butcher, and the supreme indestructible could easily pass through any obstacles, as if there were no obstacles in their way. On the contrary, they seemed to be able to increase their speed. Pu Gue, who had been standing quietly behind Yu Yang, was also trapped. She angrily attacked her surroundings. She hoped to use her own strength to break through the obstacles and rescue her master. However, it was to no avail. No matter how powerful her attack was, it was like a clay ox entering the sea when it hit the transparent barrier. There was no response at all. The more she struggled, the less space she could move. In the end, she did not even have the space to stretch her arms and legs. She was trapped in the space barrier like a dumpling. Boom! On the other side, the three divine-level experts took advantage of the East to launch another attack. 3 types of divine power of different strengths and attributes penetrated the space at the same time and bombarded Yu Yang's body without any reservation. The beastified captain and the supreme indestructible launched a pincer attack, while the Heaven Butcher and the World Butcher, who were good at sneak attacks, came down from the top of his head. Yu Yang's body shook. His entire body was like a collapsing mountain. Under the push of the terrifying destructive aura, he fell down with a loud rumble. He, who had lost consciousness under the heavy blow, did not even struggle as he directly fell into the black hole created by the East. The world of the chessboard and the space around him had been shattered by the combined attacks of the 3 divine-level experts. Under the pull of the laws, Yu Yang's body moved faster and faster. In the end, he was as fast as a shooting star as he slid into the endless black hole. Meanwhile, Pu Gue was still trapped in her original position, unable to move her fingers. Is it over? The captain was still in disbelief. Titan Yu, who had been so abnormal and troublesome to deal with just now, had he really been defeated by him? Originally, he had to go through a tough battle, but he didn't expect that he would be heavily injured and faint with just a joint attack. Of course, the greatest credit did not come from the 3 of them working together, but from the East. Without his chessboard world, without him using the power of laws to trap this Titan Yu, even if the 3 of them worked together, they would not have won so easily. Compared to the captain's optimism, the Heaven Butcher and the World Butcher were much more cautious. It was too smooth. Titan Yu God Butcher only defended and did not counterattack at all. This doesn't match his personality. Supreme Indestructible also shook his head. We did not even use 100% of our strength. This kind of victory is a little suspicious. The twin-headed dragon Guong and the others who were watching the battle looked at the Beast Emperor. They did not think that Titan Yu God would be defeated so easily. However, with their current realm and strength, they could not see the truth. Hence, they could only ask for help from the Beast Emperor, who was also a super divine level expert like Dongfang and the others. Only the Beast Emperor, who was the leader of the 9-headed clan, could see the truth. The demon Larch revealed a slight smile and gently waved his hand. Actually, everyone doesn't have to look at me. Just look at Pu Gue in the arena. She isn't dead or injured. In turn, doesn't this prove that Titan Yu is safe and sound? Although we can't use grimoires or summon beasts to fight in the chessboard world, since it exists, the beast law should be in effect. That's right. If Pu Gue is fine, then Titan Yu is definitely fine. We were worried for nothing just now. But with 3 super divine level experts working together, Titan Yu could not even retaliate. How could he be fine? Wasn't that black hole created by Palace Master Dongfang? If it was created by Titan Yu himself, then Titan Yu should have taken the chance to escape. It's reasonable that he is fine. Didn't Dongfang deny the existence of all divine gates? It's impossible that there are more. Well said. Even the captain doesn't have the help of a divine gate, let alone Titan Yu, who only imitated the appearance of a divine gate. Then what do you think is going on? If you ask me, who should I ask? Everyone who was watching the battle started to discuss amongst themselves. No one was convinced by the other. Everyone had their own opinions and thoughts, but none of them could stand up to scrutiny. Yu Yang's performance looked ordinary, but the more they thought about it, the more confused they became. The more they thought about it, the more mysterious they felt. In the end, this suspicion extended to the captain and the others. Even they, who were the attackers, felt that something was wrong. What went wrong? Just as everyone was thinking, Tu Wan, who wanted to cry but couldn't find a hole to hide in, suddenly let out a scream of pain. His sternum and spine exploded at the same time. There was a deep bloody hole in the top of his head. White brain matter gushed out. What was even more frightening was that countless bewitching blood-red divine lights were wreaking havoc on his body. If not for his powerful divine body, Tu Wan would have almost been turned into a skeleton by these blood-red divine lights. A golden fist mark emerged from Tu Wan's sternum, and countless ribs exploded outwards like broken straws. Pieces of his internal organs flew everywhere. At the same time, a golden fist imprint with a hint of purple appeared on the back of his spine. It did not shatter his bones or shatter his internal organs, but the terrifying fist imprint did not dissipate. With it around, even if Tu Wan had a divine body, he would not be able to recover normally. Why is it me again? Tu Wan used all his strength to weakly spit out this sentence. He was speechless. Even if he was the easiest to bully among the divine-level experts, there was no need for him to suffer every time, right? There was simply no justice in this world. Was it wrong for him to hide far away and not participate in the battle? Why was he always the one getting injured? Besides, you guys are fighting Titan Yu. Why do you want me to take the damage for him? I am also his enemy, okay? How could you make a mistake with such a huge target? Are you guys purposely messing with me? Tu Wan really wanted to question his ally like this. Unfortunately, he did not have the time to shout out these words of grief and indignation from his throat that was already filled with blood and pieces of his internal organs. His eyes rolled back and he fainted on the ground. Look carefully. The arrogant man clapped his hands and praised. So the function of the Pu Gui is to take the damage for its master and shift the blame to others. This is wonderful. With the help of this Pu Gui, Titan Yu does not even need to hit anyone. The harder you hit him, the more pain he will feel, and the more pain the Pu Gui will take, and the more pain it will pass on to others. It is impossible for an ordinary Pu Gui to pass on the damage of a divine-level expert. Only this Pu Gui in front of us, who surpassed herself and became a divine beast, has this ability. The Yao Emperor pointed out the difference between the two. Towards this divine beast Pu Gui in front of them who had transformed into a human, her uniqueness had indeed caused everyone to gasp in surprise. Unfortunately, everyone saw the result. No one could see how she took the damage on behalf of her master and shifted the blame to others. Exchange pieces. Dong Feng snorted lightly. A light flashed in the chessboard world. Tu Wan, who was heavily injured and unable to recover, and the Pu Gui, who was still trapped and unable to move, were both separated from the chessboard world. Unlike the spectators, the two of them were separated from each other. Although they were outside the chessboard world, they were not completely out of the chessboard world's chess game. However, they could no longer unleash their combat prowess. They were like two chess pieces that had been exchanged. The Pu Gui had been exchanged. Yu Yang, who had just been swallowed by the black hole, did not show himself. Could it be that he had already been thrown into an endless space-time crack, and would not be able to find a way back in a short period of time? It would be great if that was the case. However, before the captain could rejoice, he saw the hateful country bumpkin, who was yawning and stretching his body, standing behind Supreme Indestructible with a hateful expression, as if he had just woken up from a long dream. This brat, when and where did he run off to? The captain was puzzled no matter how he thought about it. Not only him, even Tian Tushur, who was the fastest and had the best reaction speed, also did not understand. Supreme Indestructible, who had the body of a giant, did not even realize that the enemy was already standing behind him. He was still seriously searching for any suspicious points, completely unaware that the greatest threat was standing behind his right ankle compared to the 20-meter-tall Supreme Indestructible, who had a strong innate skill. Yu Yang indeed had to look up to this giant that was even taller than a building. If they were to compare body size and weight, even if there were 100 Yu Yang, he would still lose. However, battle power had nothing to do with this. Yu Yang seemed to be indifferent as he punched out. It looked soft and powerless, and its speed was as slow as a snail. It was even lighter than a cotton fist, and it did not make any sound. It was probably slightly louder than the sound of a feather falling to the ground. Not to mention that it could not even defeat a Zhizun, it could not even kill a mosquito or an ant. In the next second, the captain saw Supreme Indestructible, who had a strong innate skill and the world's most barbaric body, fall to the ground with a loud bang. His right foot, which could easily crush a mammoth, exploded from the inside out. It was no longer in human shape. It looked as disgusting as it was disgusting. Compared to Tu Wan's chest, where his internal organs were sent flying, Supreme Indestructible's right foot was even more miserable. Under the captain's incredulous gaze, Yu Yang lifted Supreme Indestructible up like an ant moving a huge rock. He was like a barbarian grabbing a broken sack and smashing it around. He was even crazier and more violent than this. Boom, 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 boom. It was unknown how many times he had smashed it, but the mountain peak was smashed into flat ground again and again. Deep pits were formed on the flat ground, and the deep pits protruded from the crazy smashing, forming hills. The whole chessboard world had become a dilapidated ruin full of potholes. Under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, Yu Yang casually threw Supreme Indestructible, who was still in a daze, away as if he was throwing away a dirty and damaged doll. He then patted the non-existent dust off his hands as if there was no one else present. Then, he showed a bright smile to the captain, the god-level ranker who was the #1 guard of the central shrine, and was known as Giant God Nagato. "Don't worry, if you don't like to be so gentle, I can be a little rough." Beating Supreme Indestructible, who had a strong innate skill, to the point that he had to look for his teeth all over the ground, was gentle? Are you sure? When the captain thought about how this brat would treat him rudely later, he felt a chill run down his spine, from the soles of his feet to his back, up his spine, all the way to the top of his head, and then out from the top of his skull. It's over. Dongfang was right. This damn Titan you was really abnormal. Chapter 13-19. When Supreme Indestructible fell to the ground, everyone's impression of him changed. Before this, the spectators who believed that Titan you would lose for sure all felt powerless from the bottom of their hearts. Could it be that in this world, someone who could defeat Titan Yu, this kid hasn't been born yet? Dongfang, Tu Shi, the captain, Supreme Indestructible, and the other divine-level experts worked together, but they still couldn't do anything to this kid. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it. Supreme Indestructible, who had great talent, had fallen. Next. Who would it be next? The captain's expression was very unsightly. He felt that he would most likely be the next one to suffer. Whether it was the inviolable will of a divine-level expert, or the pride of a super-expert, he wouldn't allow his enemy to make fun of him in front of so many spectators. The captain really wanted to shout at Titan Yu, "I'm not a fish on the chopping block. I'm not a lamb that you can do whatever you want to me." Of course, he couldn't shout this out in the end, because the captain was feeling a bit guilty. He knew that he wouldn't be a match for Supreme Indestructible, who had great talent and a strong body. Dongfang. The captain stared at Yu Yang, not daring to turn his head. He was the #1 guard of the central shrine, full of confidence. Now, he was worried that this incredible youngster would launch a sneak attack and deal him a fatal blow, so he anxiously shouted Dongfang's name. From the bottom of his heart, he didn't want to stand against Yu Yang. Instead, he hoped that his strongest ally, Dongfang, could step forward and help him out. Other than Dongfang, the captain couldn't think of anyone else who could stop a freak like Titan Yu. It's no big deal. Swap. Only Palace Master Dongfang remained confident. As soon as he finished speaking, Tu Yu, who had already been transformed into a chessboard puppet war slave, unleashed a beam of golden light that shot toward the heavily injured Supreme Invincible. In an instant, the two's injuries were swapped. The monster Tu Yu exploded into pieces, while the heavily injured Supreme Indestructible quickly recovered from the golden light. After Supreme Indestructible stood up again, the spectators discovered that both his strength and body were completely new. It was even better than before the battle. Seeing such a strange scene, the spectators could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Holy sh*t, with this kind of nomological ability, in this unique world operated by the will of God, who else could defeat the creator and master of the Eastern chessboard world? Impossible. Even if Titan Yu was 100 or 1,000 times stronger, it would still be impossible for him to defeat Dongfang. Or perhaps, if the more powerful Divine Temple supremacy was in the chessboard world, he would not dare to say that he could win easily. Because this wasn't something that could be defeated by strength. This was a law that made people feel incomparable despair. It was a supreme divine power that was completely controlled by the Eastern World Lord. Too shameless. Only now did the arrogant man understand why Dongfang would waste his divine power to resurrect trash like Tu Yu, Burial Tiger, and Long Mantis as war puppets. So it was for this. Before the battle even started, Dongfang had already set up this hidden chess piece, setting up an ambush from 10 sides, just waiting for Titan Yu to jump into it. Dongfang, as expected of the number 1 sage of the central shrine. Respect, respect. The Demon Emperor also shook his head and sighed. Compared to the other divine-level experts in the upper heaven realm, although Dongfang was not the one with the strongest divine power, he was definitely the most terrifying enemy. Victory is always in the grasp. Is this what it means? The twin-headed dragon Gu Eng's face was as pale as paper, his eyes lifeless as he muttered to himself. If he didn't look, he wouldn't know. With one look, he realized that he was really an existence like an ant, incomparably insignificant, compared to monsters like Titan Yu or Dongfang, wanting to retain a bit of self-respect, wanting to redeem a bit of superiority in a certain aspect, wanting to not completely break down, was really very difficult. Just how in the world did this kind of monster come into being? It was fine if there was one, but 2 of them were so abnormal that they made people go crazy. If this went on, would others still be able to live? The twin-headed dragon Guang wasn't the only one who felt dejected. Almost all the spectators felt the same. Except for the Demon Emperor. The others were close to breaking down under Dongfang's attack. Losing in intelligence was often more painful and powerless than losing in strength. Titan Yu, I think that you didn't use that little trick just now, right? At this moment, Heaven's slaughter god Tu Sure was hidden in the darkness as he snorted faintly. His words gave people a feeling as if there was an invisible thorn that drilled into their ears at the same time as his voice. It penetrated deep into their brains and pierced straight into the core of their souls. He was different from the excited captain. Before Yu Yang really failed, he wouldn't lower his guard even a bit. What a joke. What replacement. It's just a small trick. Who are you trying to scare? Yu Yang shrugged his shoulders, indicating that he only needed to destroy Tu Yu and the other 2 puppet slaves. When everyone heard this, they thought, there seems to be a turning point. Could it be that in this strange battle that everyone seemed to have no solution to, there was still a way to easily break through the formation? Yu Yang's confident response made the spectators curious again. Especially the Demon Emperor, who was very interested in him previously, looked at him with a smile. I completely agree. The most surprising thing was that Dong Feng actually agreed with Yu Yang's words. The arrogant man almost thought that Dong Feng had taken the wrong medicine. As long as the war slaves are destroyed, they can indeed escape the influence of the code. However, Titan Yu, what I want to say is that you are not the first person to see this flaw. After comprehending this code, I have not been hiding it for thousands of years. On the contrary, I have been constantly repairing and changing it. Smart young man, you can't be thinking that I will take out a half-finished product to fight you, right? Dong Feng laughed very lightly. It wasn't that he didn't have a backup plan. Since he could use these puppet slaves, he knew the weakness of this method. Therefore, Dong Feng made a move that was even more shocking to the eyes. Under the gazes of everyone present, Dong Feng took the initiative to kill Tu Yu, Long Mantis, Zhang Hu and the other puppet war slaves before Yu Yang could make a move. If there was one person in this world who could truly and completely destroy the puppet slaves, then it would definitely be Dong Feng himself, the creator and master of the chessboard world. However, before Yu Yang could make a move, he used his vast divine power to destroy Tu Yu and the other puppet slaves in one move. This action puzzled all the spectators. Why? Dong Feng didn't protect the war slaves, didn't hide them, and instead acted himself to kill these war slaves? As long as the war slaves existed, through the use of the code and substitution, then everyone on Dong Feng's side would forever be in an invincible position. Such a huge advantage. Why didn't Dong Feng make use of it and instead personally send them to their death? They couldn't understand. Everyone present couldn't understand. Even the Demon Emperor, who had been staring at Dong Feng, frowned tightly. What he didn't understand the most was not why Dong Feng personally destroyed Tu Yu and the other puppet slaves, but why did Dong Feng still create Tu Yu and the other war slaves when they clearly had an advantage, and also a weakness? According to the original situation, Dong Feng didn't need Tu Yu, Long Mantis, and Burial Tiger's battle power at all. He didn't even need them to enter the chessboard world. He could just casually send them outside and watch the battle like all the spectators. However, Dong Feng didn't do that. Instead, he turned Tu Yu, Long Mantis, and Burial Tiger into chess pieces and participated in the battle. The Demon Emperor knew. Dong Feng's puzzling action must have some kind of purpose. The great hall master of the Central Divine Palace, who was famous in the upper realm for his wisdom and meticulous planning, never did useless things. However, even with the eyes of the Demon Emperor, with the wisdom of the Demon Emperor, and with the ability of the Demon Emperor, he couldn't see through the mystery. Everyone could only know one thing. Dong Feng's action had a deep meaning, but no one could guess the truth. What was Dong Feng's intention and goal of killing the war slaves before Titan Yu could make a move? None of them could figure it out, and all turned to look at Yu Yang. They hoped to see something on his face. Yu Yang's face was expressionless. There was no surprise, no frustration, and no anger. What people saw was a kind of calm that was as still as water, as if he had already seen through everything that would happen in the future many years ago. His expression was quiet and peaceful. When the captain saw this, he snorted coldly. He felt that this brat was a dead chicken that was stuffed with rice. On the surface, he was stubbornly holding on, but in his heart, he was scared to death. Just as everyone was looking forward to it, Dong Feng spoke again. Dear friends, whether you are friends or enemies, thank you very much for your participation. What I want to say now is that I have made you wait for a long time. Let me uncover the mystery for everyone. The truth is, this battle only truly began the moment I erased the war slaves. Perhaps you have heard of hidden pieces. In a game of chess, they are buried early and wait until the time of need. Or at the most crucial moment, these hidden pieces will appear and play a crucial role. From then on, they will settle or even reverse the entire battle situation. Dong Feng's voice carried a hint of lightness, as if he was an old hunter that had seen his prey in a trap and exclaimed, "What a big fox! Its fur is so beautiful in delight. Perhaps it was because he saw everyone's confusion, he explained to everyone in a good mood. As everyone can see, my action of personally erasing the war slaves was actually not to kill them. In reality, as long as I, the master of the chessboard world, still have divine power, then they can be reborn infinitely. The reason why I did not let Titan Yu attack them was not because I was afraid that he would kill these war slaves, but because I felt that it would be a waste of time. Hence, I decided to do it myself and directly erase them, turning them into abandoned pieces. Through abandoned pieces, you must have obtained something from it. Yao Emperor was very certain of Dongfang's character. Dongfang would definitely not do something that would cause him to lose money. Yes. Dongfang laughed. However, the intention of abandoned pieces is not to obtain, but to exchange. When a hidden piece needs to come out from the dark, then it needs the right timing and rules. I turned 3 war slaves into abandoned pieces and exchanged them for 3 hidden pieces that had been lying in ambush long ago. This is the entire reason for my action. Creating a few chess pieces. Then abandoning these useless chess pieces. Exchanging some of the trump cards that he needed and had been lying in ambush long ago. This was the true truth, and it was also Dongfang's plan and arrangement all along. Under the rules of the chessboard world, once the battle began, then one could not summon, and could not even use any method to increase the number of teammates, even if it was the guardian beast in the summoning grimoire. However, Dongfang, the master of the chessboard world who was almost demonic in his wisdom, made use of this rule. He used this method of abandoning pieces to unseal the important hidden pieces that could not appear and could not be added to the chessboard world battlefield from their hiding places. The price he paid was merely 3 puppet war slaves that had no consciousness. Everyone knew that once the exchange was successful, then what was exchanged would definitely be the hidden pieces that Dongfang had been lying in ambush in this chessboard world long ago. Once they appeared at the crucial moment, they would be able to produce a huge amount of energy, and would definitely be able to stabilize the situation and decide the outcome of the battle. However, who were these hidden pieces? Who were they? Chapter 1320. A ray of light flashed in the sky. At first, it was very faint, but gradually, it became brighter and brighter until it became a sun-like existence that people couldn't look at directly. It was even more brilliant than the sun in the chessboard world. Even the demon emperor, who had godly eyes, had to cover it with his hands. As for the arrogant man and the others, they were even more dazzled. The pressure was like a mountain descending. The stones under Yu Yang's feet cracked. This was not the will of the East, but another kind of power, an invincible godly power, a pressure like that of a mountain. From the moment the invincible godly power enveloped Yu Yang's head, the world was completely different, showing a new trend, as if this was the direction of the right path, and everything before this was wrong. A man who was even more dazzling than the sun slowly descended from the sky. He was indescribably handsome. He was more perfect and brilliant than the legendary god. Anyone who saw him would sigh from the bottom of their heart. Those who didn't have the will of a supreme martial artist would even feel their heart palpitate and feel ashamed of their inferiority. Weaker spectators like the double-headed dragon Guang and the glamorous queen had the urge to kneel in front of this man and hug his thighs to ask for his permission. Then, they would be willing to be ordered around by him and do their best until the day they die. Only a particularly eccentric and unruly man could maintain his original sanity. He disdainfully spat on the ground to show his disdain. And standing beside him, the 2 overlords of the Heaven Realm, Black Bear Goblin and Wild Boar Goblin, were continuously slapping themselves in the face. Only by doing that could they barely resist the negative effects of being extremely lowly in their hearts. The other people of the 9 clans all lowered their eyes, not daring to look at the man in the field. They were afraid that if they made eye contact, their minds would be frightened by the other's godly power. Invincible supreme martial artist. The demon emperor looked serious and snorted coldly. The proud you, the god-level expert who has never been defeated in his life in the records of the heaven realm, is actually ordered around by the East, and is willing to be a hidden pawn in someone else's chess game. Am I right? At least I'm better than those who don't even have the qualifications to become Fuzi, am I right? The newcomer lightly brushed her soft and beautiful long hair off her shoulders and smiled confidently. Other than you, who are the other two? Immovable Supreme Martial Artist and Deity Palace Supreme Martial Artist, Tian Yu? The Demon Emperor frowned. You want to know the truth? It's very simple, just defeat me. The undefeatable Paragon laughed heartily. He was so handsome that no one could look at him directly. He gathered the boundless divine power together and transformed it into an extremely gorgeous divine armor. He then used the remaining divine power to form an exquisite golden harp. He didn't need to play it personally. This divine harp would naturally play by itself. One only needed to listen to the gentle sounds of nature. The tinkling music lingered in the ears, causing all the listeners to feel as though they had fallen into paradise, as though they were bathing in the spring breeze. When Yu Yang saw this, his eyebrows furrowed. The Yao Emperor, who had been neutral all this while, reminded him, "Be careful, that undefeated record is real." After being stunned for half a second, Yu Yang asked, "Is it undefeated after advancing to the divine level, or has it been undefeated since birth? Is it the law of divine power, or an innate ability?" The Yao Emperor nodded slowly. It should be an innate ability. Although the Deity Palace Supreme Martial Artist and the Immovable Supreme Martial Artist are of a higher rank, the opponent in front of you is indeed a divine-level expert who has never been defeated in his life. No matter who the undefeatable Paragon fights against, he will always be the same. The captain threw his head back and laughed maniacally. You might as well call it the Invincible Banner. As long as the invincible sovereign appears on the battlefield, then this war will definitely be won. This is something that no power can change. The Yao Emperor's expression was solemn. Although it's arrogant, if you insist on saying it like this, it's also a fact. The double-headed dragon Gu Ong and the other spectators heard the Yao Emperor's inconceivable words. They were all dumbfounded. They simply couldn't believe their ears. How could this be? From birth to maturity, and then to advancing to the divine level, how many battles would a person experience? Who could possibly be undefeated in a battle? Could it be that the undefeatable Paragon had never met an opponent who was stronger than him in all his battles? Even if their strengths were comparable, it was impossible to be undefeated all the time. Every warrior's comprehension of techniques and battle techniques were different. The growth of grimoires and beasts was even more ever-changing. Who knows, one day, he might meet an opponent whose attributes and innate ability were on the same level. Defeat was almost unavoidable. How did the undefeatable Paragon always defeat his opponents and maintain an undefeated record? Hearing the Yao Emperor's words, Yu Yang also felt ashamed. Logically speaking, his growth speed and process were already good enough, but he still frequently met some strong enemies. If it wasn't for Shui Wuxia and the others' unlimited help, or the heavenly sword goddess's silent protection, he might have already died 1,000 times. For someone as strong as Yu Yang in terms of cultivation. For someone as monstrous as Dongfang, he would also meet a strong opponent, and had no choice but to suffer a grievance in a battle and lose. How could this undefeatable Paragon who looked like a trap be able to fight an undefeated battle? Could it be that traps were the strongest people in the world? Yu Yang couldn't help but curse in his heart. Fighting against Dongfang, who was full of evil tricks and who knew how many more tricks he would come up with, now there was an undefeatable Paragon who had never been defeated in his life. Furthermore, even if he really defeated this guy, It was hard to guarantee that there wouldn't be even more abnormal Jizun and Jizun, the two big bosses. Hey, this instance dungeon's difficulty was too high. Originally, they might not even be able to clear this nightmare instance dungeon in a team battle, but now they had to clear it by themselves? Were the heavens playing with this young master's rhythm? How many battles have you fought in your life? Yu Yang still had a sliver of hope in his heart. If this sissy undefeatable paragon had only fought 2 or 3 battles in his life and won all of them, it would be fine. It was probably because he didn't meet a truly strong opponent, which was why he was called undefeatable. Even if I don't have 100,000, I believe I have fought 99,000 battles. The Yao Emperor revealed another secret. The undefeatable paragon is a divine level ranker who loves to challenge his opponents the most. F***CK. Yu Yang could only curse in response. Don't make me sound so scary, okay? The undefeatable paragon grinned from ear to ear. It was obvious that he was very happy with the Yao Emperor's praise. The deity Templar's sovereign Tian Yu once said that he had failed 100 times in his life. Furthermore, after he had reached the godly level, he had experienced close to 10 battles where his life was at stake. He had narrowly escaped with his life. Although the undefeatable paragon rarely fought, according to what I know, he had failed at least 3 times. Before the Dongfang First Palace Master entered the central shrine, he rarely suffered any defeat. After he was promoted to the First Palace Master, he was like the sun in the sky. However, he had also failed in his schemes and was countered by others, which almost cost him his life. Tian Tushur, Shin Tushur also revealed a piece of insider information that was not known to the world. After a pause, he sighed and said, "Only the undefeatable paragon, ever since he started his cultivation, had fought thousands of battles with others, but he had never fought to a draw, not to mention a defeat." Not even a draw? The arrogant man's expression also changed. His previous disdain was replaced by shock. If it was said that he had never been defeated before, it might be possible if he was good at escaping and had the special ability to run 1,000 miles away when the situation was not good. However, if he had never been defeated in his entire life and had never tried to tie, then that would be too crazy. Just how strong was the undefeatable paragon to have such a ridiculous record? Yu Yang muttered to himself for a while. In the suffocating atmosphere, he suddenly opened his mouth and asked, "Your inherent skill is perception?" The handsome undefeatable paragon raised his long golden eyebrows. As expected of Titan Yu, you guessed it correctly. The main reason why I have never been defeated in my life is because of my unique and innate inherent skill. However, it's useless even if you guessed it correctly. You are not the first person to guess it correctly, and you won't be the last. As long as you fight against me, you will definitely lose. This is the iron rule that surpasses everything. His finger, which was so beautiful that it made people sigh in sorrow, gently moved in the air, drawing out lines of incomparably marvelous runes. It was not a summoning grimoire. However, the undefeatable paragon created a summoning grimoire in the void with his divine power and runic circle. It did not have the power of a grimoire, but it could appear like a grimoire, allowing everyone to see it clearly. Undefeatable inherent skill. The grimoire owner has a special premonition ability. Once he senses it, he will be able to see the future of the battle and determine the final outcome. This inherent skill is not affected by any external forces. Level 10 Inherent Skill. Combining his divine power, godly level and divinity, the undefeatable paragon rule is born. Anyone who can shake or deny this rule will receive the earliest warning. After reading it, everyone came to a sudden realization. I understand now. So this is the truth. The undefeatable paragon was not the strongest person in the heaven realm. He was just a godly level ranker with the first sense. Any opponent that could defeat him, the undefeatable paragon would immediately know and avoid them. Therefore, no matter when, no matter what kind of battle, there would not be any kind of threat. As for those who could not defeat him, no matter how many there were, they would just be sending themselves to their death. With this kind of undefeatable inherent skill that could predict the outcome, the undefeatable Paragon could completely relax and attack. If he wanted to fight, he could fight, and if he wanted to retreat, he could retreat. No wonder he could remain undefeated for his entire life. Of course, having this kind of bug-like undefeatable inherent skill was simply the greatest benefit in life. Even Yu Yang, who was born with 2 inherent skills, couldn't help but be envious and jealous. Perhaps you guys haven't noticed one detail. Dongfang, who had been silent for a long time, finally spoke. What does the undefeatable Paragon's appearance mean? That means victory. In other words, no matter how they fight, Titan, you will definitely lose. That was also why the undefeatable Paragon personally came. Through his premonition, the undefeatable Paragon had already seen the future outcome. This is an unchangeable rule. Titan you, the only opponent that I, Dongfang, am looking forward to. How will you deal with it? Give me a surprise. Furthermore, I really want to know what you are feeling right now. Surprise your sister. This young master wants to call and complain right now. No one could understand Yu Yang's words. This was because he was speaking to an old Taoist priest, who might be the GM or even the CEO of the God of Heaven Game Company. You can't even play with people like this. Hurry up and send your granddaughter or granddaughter over to warm your bed, otherwise this little heart of mine that has suffered a huge blow won't be able to recover. Currently, Yu Yang, who was in a dangerous situation and was about to face a great calamity, actually still had the mood to fantasize about other people's big-breasted sisters or cute little Lolas. It had to be said that this fellow's nerves were completely made of steel wire. The captain who had scared Yu Yang half to death just now, the first person on duty at the central shrine, had now regained his composure. He happily clapped his hands and laughed loudly. He's starting to spout nonsense. Is he scared silly? Ha ha ha, Dongfang, you're too much. What if this little friend pees his pants in fright? Wouldn't that make you, a senior of Tong Tian Tower, lose face? Dongfang, you shouldn't bully a child like this. What if he can't take it anymore and cries? Ah ha 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 ha. The spectators didn't say anything on the surface, but in their hearts, they were all pointing their middle fingers at him. Why didn't you say anything when you scared Titan you so much that he almost cried for help? The Fey Emperor's expression was extremely solemn at this moment. He reminded Yu Yang, if the invincible Ji Zun had sensed you at first, then you wouldn't have been able to defeat him. The law of Godhead fusion is definitely not wrong. You have to think of another way to turn the tables. Yu Yang was silent. How could he not know? If it wasn't for the support of the Eastern chessboard world, killing the invincible Ji Zun wouldn't be easy, but he could still think of a way. But it was impossible now, because in the Eastern chessboard world, he was fighting alone. The law here rejected any kind of help. Even if it was a guardian beast that was one with the master, it couldn't appear. Under such conditions, what else could he do? Just as Yu Yang was deep in thought, a slight tremor suddenly appeared in the chessboard world. It was extremely light, but everyone sensed it. Thump, 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 thump. A series of extremely light sounds and vibrations came from an unknown distance. It was as if a giant was holding a sledgehammer and knocking on an immovable mountain. Who was it? Who was outside the chessboard world, attacking it savagely? Could it be Titan Yu's reinforcements? But didn't Titan Yu's supporters all die in the sacrificial ceremony? Who was this person who had just arrived? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.